you've already run off with our Haoji, but could you at least let him come back to the dorm occasionally to see us lonely old folks? We miss him. Zhang Shuiao blushed slightly at their comments, lowered her head shyly, smiled with her lips pursed, and gently pinched Chen Hao's thigh under the table. Chen Hao, thick-skinned as ever, instead of being besieged by his roommates, put his arm around Zhang Shuiao's shoulder and smugly shook his head. Envious and jealous? If you're so capable, go find a girlfriend and be seen together all the time. If you can't, then stop being so sour here. Chapter 59. Haozi, that's good. You know how to care for your wife now. Damn. Haozi, you're getting more and more arrogant. This is blatant bragging. Brothers, can you stand it? I can't stand it. He has to treat us to dinner tonight. The lively roommates immediately started making a ruckus, and Tian Xinyue joined in the teasing, filling the classroom with a joyful atmosphere. Soon the school bell rang, and the teacher began the lesson. Chen Hao wasn't focused on the course today. He took out his phone, opened the driving test treasure app, and started diligently working through the question bank for subject 1. More than 1,000 questions were not difficult for him, a top student, especially since he is quick-witted, has an excellent memory, and can solve problems very quickly. His fingers swiped rapidly across the screen, quickly digesting and understanding the questions about traffic regulations, signs and markings, and safe and civilized driving. He spent the entire class period completely absorbed in doing practice problems. When the system notification sounded in his mind, he suddenly realized that a class had already passed. Ding! Host detected engaging in driving-related knowledge learning practicing driving test questions. Congratulations! You have accumulated 429 driving experience points. Ding! Triggered a 10,000x return effect. You have received a 1999x experience bonus. Refund calculation, 429 points 1,999 times equals 857,571 experience points. Congratulations! Your driving skill experience points are full, and your level has increased. Current driving skill level, Epic 1,280,115 10 million. It's done. Driving skills are now epic. Chen Hao felt a surge of pleasant joy. In an instant, a wealth of deeper knowledge and understanding about vehicle mechanics, extreme driving techniques, handling complex road conditions, and even professional racing theory flooded into his mind. He felt that even if he were given a sports car to drive on the track now, he could drive at a professional level, or even better. After class, Zhang Shuiao came over and saw that Chen Hao's phone still had the driving test question bank interface on it. She gently patted him and whispered a reproach. You didn't attend class again. This semester's major courses are quite important. Chen Hao put away his phone and smiled confidently at her. Don't worry, even if I don't pay attention in class, I'll still get first place in the final exam. Believe it or not? In the past, Zhang Shuiao would have thought he was too arrogant and would have argued with him. But Chen Hao has now proven with countless facts just how unconventional he is. Let alone getting first place in the final exam, Zhang Shuiao thinks he might not even pass the professor qualification exam right now. Oomph, so smug. Zhang Shuiao gave him a playful glare, but couldn't help but smile, feeling secretly pleased with herself. Of course she was happy that her man was so amazing. Oh my god. Here we go again. Haoji, Shuiao, can you two be a little more mindful of the occasion when you're flirting like this? We're covered in goosebumps, we could sweep them up and sell them by weight. Dong let and rubbed his arms, looking like he couldn't take it anymore. Tian Xinyue chimed in with a laugh, exactly. It's so cheesy. Yao, you only have eyes for Chen Hao now, right? Zhang Shuiao felt embarrassed by their comments and blushed as she moved closer to Chen Hao. Baiyu noticed Chen Hao looking at his phone and asked curiously, Brother Hao, what were you looking at with your head down during class? You seemed so focused. Were you writing a love letter to your girlfriend? Chen Hao laughed and said, Why write a love letter? I'm looking at the question bank for the theory test, preparing to take my driver's license test. Taking a driving test? The three roommates and Tian Xinyue were all stunned for a moment. Fan Xing asked, Brother Hao, why did you suddenly decide to take a driving test? I've never heard you mention it before. Chen Hao answered naturally, now Shuiao drives us around every day, it's quite tiring for her to run around like that. The sooner I get my driver's license, the more I can drive, and it'll be easier for her. He didn't mention Zhang Shuiao's pregnancy, it was a secret between the two of them. Wow. Haozi, that's great. You know how to care for your wife now. Don let in punched Chen Hao and winked. Bai Yu nodded. From the perspective of behavioral motivation, Hao Ji's actions demonstrate a high sense of responsibility and care for his partner, which is commendable. Tian Xinyue looked at Zhang Shuya with envy. Yao Yao, did you hear that? Chen Hao is just worried about you driving so hard. You're so lucky. Why can't I find such a good boyfriend? Zhang Shuya felt as sweet as if she had drunk honey, but she pretended to be embarrassed and gently pushed Tian Xinyue. What nonsense are you talking about? But she couldn't hide the smile in her eyes. At noon, the two returned to the villa. Chen Hao put on an apron and went into the kitchen, quickly preparing two simple dishes and a soup. A steamed sea bass dish, with tender fish meat, uses only simple shredded scallions and steamed fish soy sauce to preserve the original flavor to the greatest extent. A dish of garlic broccoli, vibrant green and refreshing. Add a tomato, tofu, and mushroom soup for a light, delicious, and nutritious meal. As soon as the food was served, Zhang Shuiyao took a bite of the fish and her eyes lit up immediately. Chen Hao, you've got the steaming time on point for this fish so perfect. It's so tender and fresh, with absolutely no fishy smell. It's even better than my mom's. She now admires Chen Hao's cooking skills immensely, feeling that he is improving every day. Eat more if you like. Chen Hao placed a large piece of boneless fish belly meat into her bowl. You need to supplement with high-quality protein now. The two ate and passed food to each other, chatting and laughing, filling the restaurant with a warm atmosphere. Zhang Shuya would steal glances at Chen Hao's profile as he focused on eating or picked up food for her heart overflowing with happiness. After lunch, they cleaned up the dishes and then snuggled up on the sofa in the living room to rest. Zhang Shuya leaned against Chen Hao's chest, listening to his steady heartbeat, and unconsciously became sleepy. Chen Hao gently patted her back, speaking softly as if coaxing a child, and soon she fell asleep. Looking at Zhang Shuya's peaceful sleeping face in his arms, her long eyelashes like little fans, Chen Hao felt a sense of tranquility. He also closed his eyes and rested for a while. Chen Hao woke up promptly at 1:30 p.m. Seeing that Zhang Shuya was still sleeping soundly, with a slight smile on her lips, I wondered what sweet dreams she was having. He carefully moved away, bent down, and gently kissed her smooth forehead, then quietly got up and changed into clean and tidy clothes. I glanced at the time. There was still some time before my appointment with Li Yichuan at 2 p.m. He left a note for Zhang Shuya, who was still fast asleep, on her bedside table, then quietly closed the bedroom door, went downstairs, and used his phone to call a ride-hailing car. The car arrived quickly, and Chen Hao got in. The car smoothly drove out of the villa area and merged into the afternoon traffic. Chen Hao leaned back in his seat, gazing at the rapidly receding street scene outside the window, and began to plan what they might discuss when they met later. Chapter 60. Li Yichuan's bag is stolen. In a high-end office building in Shanghai, Li Yichuan's studio occupies an entire floor. In a professional recording studio, Li Yichuan had just finished recording an advertising jingle. She took off her monitoring headphones and rubbed her slightly sore neck. Her agent, Xiao Yufei, a smart and capable middle-aged woman dressed in a smart suit, walked in through the door, holding a schedule tablet. Yichuan, take a rest and get ready to leave. The brand event at that high-end shopping mall in the east of the city is at 2 p.m. The car is already arranged, and now is the perfect time to leave. 2 o'clock in the afternoon? Upon hearing this, Li Yichuan suddenly stood up from her chair. What time is it now? Xiao Yufei glanced at her watch. It's 1:30. What's wrong? Oh no, time's almost up. Li Yichuan's face showed anxiety as she quickly gathered her belongings, her phone, a small makeup bag, and... Sister Yufei, same as always, help me lure out the tails outside. I need to meet someone, it's very important. Xiao Yufei was taken aback by her sudden action. Meet someone? Who? This afternoon's event is very important. The brand attaches great importance to it. The contract specifies the time. If we're late or don't show up, it will be considered a breach of contract, and we might have to pay a penalty. Li Yichuan had already deftly stuffed the items into a low-key but expensive LV handbag. Hearing this, she didn't even look up, but her tone was unusually resolute. Then I'll just breach the contract and pay the penalty. I have to see this person today, so I can't go to the event. Yufei, please help me get rid of those annoying paparazzi and stop them from following me. Her tone carried an unquestionable willfulness, something Xiao Yufei rarely saw in her. Although Li Yichuan usually has her own opinions, she is quite cooperative at work, especially in important business activities like this. Yi Chun. Xiao Yufei frowned, quickly walked up to her, and blocked her way. Who exactly are you going to see? Is it more important than such a crucial business event? Who is this person? Is it worth breaking your contract to go? You should at least have told me, right? What if something happens? Li Yichuan stopped what she was doing and looked at her manager, who had a worried and puzzled expression on her face, knowing that she was concerned about her. She softened her tone slightly, but still didn't reveal any specific information. Yufei, don't worry, it's a serious matter. I'm going to meet someone, a musician. Someone who might be very important to me. I'll explain the details to you when I get back and things are settled, okay? There really isn't enough time now. A musician? Who? Which mentor in the industry? How come I didn't know you had this project? Xiao Yufei was even more puzzled. As Li Yichuan's agent, she should have been very familiar with Li Yichuan's schedule and the people she contacted. He's not a teacher in the industry, he's a newcomer, but his talent is amazing. Li Yichuan gave a brief explanation, then walked past Xiao Yufei and began taking out her disguise suit from the cabinet. A fisherman's hat that covered most of his face, a pair of black-rimmed glasses, an ordinary medical mask, and an oversized dark coat. Seeing that she was determined to go, and had even taken out her disguise tools, Xiao Yufei knew that there was no use in trying to persuade her anymore. Li Yichuan usually appears gentle, but once she makes up her mind, nothing can change it. She sighed helplessly and rubbed her temples. All right, you go ahead. I'll try to communicate with the brand and minimize the impact as much as possible. I'll handle the mess outside. You can go through the backup passage in Zone B of the underground parking garage. Nobody usually pays attention there. Which car do you drive? I drive my gray Buick, and nobody knows it's mine. Li Yichuan quickly changed into a coat, put on a hat, mask, and glasses, instantly transforming her into an ordinary and low-key person, making her unrecognizable in a crowd. That's what being a celebrity is like. Fame brings glamour, but it also completely robs you of ordinary freedom. Be careful, call me immediately if anything happens, Xiao Yufei reminded her worriedly. Okay, thank you, Sister Yufei. Li Yichuan gave her an okay sign, picked up her bag, and like a thief, quietly slipped out of the recording studio through the side door, heading familiarly towards the hidden passage leading to the underground parking garage. Xiao Yufei watched her figure disappear behind the door, then picked up her phone with a headache, starting to think about how to come up with a reasonable explanation for the brand that would minimize their anger. Li Yichuan successfully passed through the backup passage to the underground parking garage, where an inconspicuous gray Buick sedan was parked. This was a stealth car she specially prepared. Even the license plate was ordinary. She quickly got into the car, started the engine, and slowly drove out of the garage. Sure enough, the paparazzi cars that usually waited outside the studio were now being attracted by another van arranged by Xiao Yufei, and drove in the opposite direction. She breathed a sigh of relief, set the navigation, and drove towards the coffee shop where she had arranged to meet Shenhao. The coffee shop was in a rather secluded location, with a quiet environment and few customers. It was one of the few places she frequented where she could enjoy a moment of peace. The car drove smoothly on the road, and Li Yichuan felt a little nervous but also full of anticipation. I wonder what that guy named Shenhao is like in real life. With such outstanding musical talent, wouldn't he be arrogant? Are they easy to get along with? 20 minutes later, she arrived near her destination. She parked her car in a temporary parking spot by the roadside, checked her disguise one last time in the rearview mirror, and only after confirming that everything was in order did she pick up her bag, get out of the car, and walk towards the coffee shop hidden behind the green plants a few dozen meters away. Just as she stepped onto the sidewalk, her attention still on the coffee shop sign, a figure suddenly rushed out from the side. The man was extremely fast and had a clear target. He grabbed the strap of the LV bag that Li Yichuan was carrying on her arm and yanked it hard. Ah! Caught off guard, Li Yichuan cried out in surprise as the bag strap slipped off her arm. After succeeding, the man didn't stop, grabbed the bag, turned around, and ran wildly into the alley next to him. Li Yichuan was stunned for a moment before she realized that she had been robbed. The bag contained not only her phone and wallet, but also all her identification documents. Robbery! Robbery! Grab him! My bag! Ignoring the possibility of her disguise being exposed, she shouted as she chased after the purse snatcher in the direction he had fled, wearing flat shoes that weren't very convenient for running. Her shouts attracted the attention of some pedestrians on the road, but most people just stopped and stared in astonishment, or quickly moved away, afraid of getting into trouble. Several young people seemed to want to help, but hesitated and stopped when they saw the purse snatcher run into the dimly lit alley. No one stepped forward to stop them. Chapter 61. Who is this guy? He runs even faster than Usain Bolt. Just then, a ride-hailing car stopped near the coffee shop. Chen Hao got out of the car and checked the time on his phone, 1:55, a little earlier than the agreed time. He had just looked up, preparing to pinpoint the exact entrance to the cafe, when he heard a woman's urgent shouts coming from not far away. Robbery! Grab him! Chen Hao looked in the direction of the sound and saw a woman dressed in a dark coat, hat, and mask, dressed in a very low-key and even somewhat strange manner. They were chasing after a man who was running frantically, clutching a woman's handbag. The man looked panicked, glancing back frequently as he ran at top speed. Snatching a bag in broad daylight? Chen Hao frowned. If it were the ordinary student Chen Hao from before, he would probably immediately stay away and call the police if he encountered something like this. Acting as a hero? That's too dangerous, you might even get hurt. But Chen Hao is no longer an ordinary person. Possessing master-level Tai Chi skills, he not only mastered advanced fighting techniques, but his physical fitness, reaction speed, strength, and endurance far surpassed those of ordinary people. For him, stopping this kind of street crime posed a very low risk. A sense of justice mixed with confidence in his own abilities welled up in his heart. Without the slightest hesitation, he moved like an arrow released from a bow, chasing after the purse snatcher in the direction he had fled. He was incredibly fast. His legs moved so fast they seemed to leave afterimages, creating a stark contrast with the onlookers around him. In just a few steps, he easily overtook Li Yichuan, who was struggling to catch up but whose speed was slow due to her clothing and physical limitations. Li Yichuan, who was desperately chasing after the purse snatcher and was both anxious and angry, suddenly felt a dark shadow flash past her. Before she could even see clearly, the dark figure had already left her far behind, approaching the purse snatcher at an unbelievable speed. Li Yichuan was so shocked that she slowed her steps, her eyes widening behind her sunglasses, utterly stunned. My God! Who is this? They're running so fast. This speed, it's even more terrifying than Usain Bolt. She even thought that even Usain Bolt, the sprinter, probably couldn't outrun this random passerby who suddenly appeared. Chen Hao's speed far exceeded that of ordinary people, and he caught up with the purse snatcher in just a few steps. Hearing the footsteps getting closer and closer behind him, the thief panicked. Just as he was about to speed up and turn into a narrower side road, he felt a strong force coming from behind. Chen Hao didn't use any fancy moves, he simply kicked the purse snatcher in the lower back. The force of this kick was perfectly controlled, enough to throw the opponent off balance without causing serious injury. Ouch! The purse snatcher cried out in pain, stumbling forward and falling flat on his face, the purse flying from his hand. Chen Hao was about to step forward to pick up the bag and hold the guy down when he realized that the thief was quite fierce, or perhaps he had been driven to desperation. He endured the pain and surprisingly got up quickly. His face was covered in dust, his eyes were fierce, and he swung his fist at Chen Hao's face, cursing all the while. Damn it! Mind your own business. You're asking for it. Chen Hao was slightly taken aback, somewhat surprised that the other party dared to fight back. However, this attack seemed as slow as a snail to him. He slightly shifted his body to the side, easily dodging the chaotic punch. At the same time, his right hand seemingly casually reached out and grabbed the other person's wrist. This is precisely the skill of listening to the opponent's force and grasping their force in Tai Chi with a single touch. The opponent's strength and center of gravity are already under his control. Chen Hao flicked his wrist and gently pulled. The purse snatcher felt a gentle force that he couldn't resist, his arm felt sore and numb, and his body was involuntarily pulled forward. Chen Hao tripped him with a quick step and gently patted him on the back with his left hand. Thump! The purse snatcher fell to the ground again, this time with even more force, almost knocking out his front teeth. He saw stars and was completely powerless to resist. Chen Hao stepped forward, stomped on his back to immobilize him, and then bent down to pick up the LV bag that had fallen to the side. Big brother! Big brother, spare me! I was wrong. I'll never do it again. Here's your bag back. Let me go. The purse snatcher was completely scared now. The foot on his back felt like it weighed a ton, making it hard for him to breathe. He was so frightened that he begged for mercy repeatedly. By this time, a group of onlookers had gathered around. They hadn't dared to approach earlier, but now that they saw the purse snatcher being subdued, they all started to applaud. Young man, you've got impressive skills. Well done. This kind of social scum should be dealt with. Those moves you just made were kung fu, weren't they? They were really impressive. Chen Hao ignored the surrounding chatter, simply pressing his foot down slightly to warn, "Behave yourself. Wait for the police." No sooner had he finished speaking than the woman who had been robbed and was fully armed came running over, panting. She saw that Chen Hao had firmly pinned the purse snatcher to the ground, and that her bag had been recovered, and she visibly breathed a sigh of relief. Chen Hao handed her the bag. "Take a look, is anything missing?" Thank you, thank you." Li Yichuan, still shaken, took the bag, her voice trembling from running and nervousness. She quickly opened her bag and checked it. Her phone, wallet, ID, etc. were all there. "Nothing's missing. Everything's here. Thank you so much." She thanked him repeatedly, feeling lingering fear. If it weren't for this kind person, she would have been in big trouble today. Chen Hao nodded and took out his phone. "You're welcome. I'll call the police and let them handle it." Call the police? Li Yichuan's heart skipped a beat when she heard this. Call the police? That would be terrible. The police will arrive soon, and I'll definitely have to go to the police station to give a statement. When she takes off her hat and mask, her identity will definitely be exposed. Tomorrow's entertainment headlines will likely be something like "Pop star Li Yichuan's bag snatched on the street," leaving her in a panic, possibly accompanied by blurry photos of her chasing after the thief or looking shaken. She hates having her private affairs exposed, especially since she had sneaked out today. "Wait," she quickly called out to stop them, her mind racing. Sir, I have nothing missing and I'm fine. How about we just let it go? Give him a chance to reform," she said, pointing to the purse snatcher groaning on the ground. Upon hearing this, the purse snatcher on the ground, as if grasping at a straw, hurriedly shouted. Yes, yes, yes. Ma'am. No, beautiful lady. I was wrong. I'll never do it again. I swear. Please don't call the police. Give me a chance. If I snatch a bag again, I'm not human. Chen Hao frowned and looked at Li Yichuan. If we let this kind of person go, he might just go and rob someone else. It's safest to hand him over to the police. Chapter 62. Li Yichuan, who dares not show her face. Li Yichuan was anxious, but she couldn't openly reveal her identity due to her concerns. She had no choice but to insist, "I know you mean well for me and for the good of society. But, look at him, he's not that old, maybe he just made a mistake for a moment. Now that I've recovered my losses, I'll give him a chance. If we call the police and he gets a criminal record, his life might be ruined." She spoke in a somewhat high-sounding tone, but there was a hint of pleading in her eyes. Chen Hao glanced at her, then at the purse snatcher on the ground who was begging for mercy. The victim himself was unwilling to pursue the matter, and as a passerby, he seemed to have no need to insist on calling the police. His main concern was that he didn't want these bad people to get away with it, but since the victim had this attitude. Okay, Chen Hao put away his phone, but then pressed down harder on his foot, shouting at the purse snatcher. You got lucky this time. Remember what you said. If you ever dare to do this kind of petty theft again and I catch you doing it, it won't be so easy. Get lost. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, big brother. Thank you, big sister. I'll never do it again. The purse snatcher felt like he'd been granted a pardon. As soon as Chen Hao let go, he scrambled to his feet and dashed into the nearby alley without looking back, disappearing in an instant. The onlookers, seeing that there was no more excitement, gradually dispersed, but before leaving, they glanced at Chen Hao a few more times and whispered about his swift and decisive skills. Thank you so much. Li Yichuan thanked her again solemnly, then asked. May I ask your name? I'm so grateful to you for everything today, I really need to thank you properly. Chen Hao waved his hand, glanced at the time on his phone, and saw it was already 2:05. The person he invited may have already arrived. You're welcome, it was nothing. I have other things to do, so I'll be going now. After saying that, he didn't wait for Li Yichuan to say anything more, and turned around and walked quickly towards the coffee shop. Watching his retreating figure, Li Yichuan sighed inwardly, thinking how rare it was to find people who did good deeds anonymously and without seeking reward these days. He's such a good person, and he's so skilled too. Etc. She suddenly remembered that she and Chen Hao had agreed to meet at 2 o'clock. That's over now. She panicked and forgot all her emotions. She quickly took out her phone from her bag, found Chen Hao's WeChat, she had added him as a friend before, and made a voice call. At the same time, she hurriedly ran towards the coffee shop. The call was answered quickly. Hello, is this Teacher Chen? This is Li Yichuan. I'm so sorry. I encountered a little emergency and was a few minutes late, but I'll be at the coffee shop soon. I'm so sorry to have kept you waiting. Lee Ichuan quickly apologized, her tone sincere. A calm male voice came from the other end of the phone. It's all right, Miss Lee. I just arrived at the coffee shop entrance and was about to go in. No rush. That voice. Lee Ichuan paused slightly in her steps. That voice, it sounds kind of familiar. It seems to be that kind person who helped her catch the thief just now? A hint of doubt flashed through her mind, but she didn't have time to think about it further because the coffee shop was already in front of her. She said into her phone, okay, I'm coming in right now, as she pushed open the heavy glass door of the coffee shop. The cafe was quiet and peaceful, with soft lighting and soothing jazz music playing. There weren't many customers. Lee Ichuan's gaze quickly swept across the store. A young man was sitting in a seat by the window. He was wearing a simple white t-shirt and dark casual pants, with a tall and straight figure and a well-defined profile. He was holding a cell phone, seemingly on a call. Lee Ichuan's gaze was fixed on him, her brows furrowing slightly. That figure, and those clothes, isn't that the kind person from earlier? An unbelievable thought surged through her mind, and her feet moved involuntarily towards that spot, while she tentatively asked a question into her phone. Teacher Chen, are you wearing a white t-shirt and dark blue pants today? A voice with a hint of amusement came from the other end of the phone. Yes, Miss Lee has good eyesight, you saw me? It really is him. The kind-hearted person who was skilled, courageous, and helped her retrieve her bag was none other than Chen Hao, the musical genius she was going to meet today. Lee Ichuan's emotions were in turmoil, a mixture of surprise, coincidence, amusement, and a strange sense of fate. She put away her phone and quickly walked to Chen Hao's seat. Chen Hao put down his phone, looked up, and looked at the girl who was still wearing a hat and mask, obscuring her face, but whose figure and temperament were outstanding. Lee Ichuan was certain that the young man who had just performed a heroic act was Chen Hao. She was both surprised and delighted, and felt a strange sense of coincidence. She quickly sat down opposite Chen Hao, leaned forward slightly, lowered her voice to a whisper, and mouthed Teacher Chen to him. Then, in a whisper that could barely be heard by the two of them, she said, I am the person you are to meet today. Chen Hao looked at the strange woman opposite him, who was still wrapped up tightly, with only her bright eyes showing, and his face showed obvious surprise. He was about to speak instinctively when he said, You're Lee. Shoo. Lee Ichuan quickly put a finger to her mask, making a shushing gesture, her eyes filled with pleading and a hint of nervousness, her voice even lower. Keep your voice down, Teacher Chen, please don't call me by name. Please. Chen Hao immediately understood, swallowed back what he was about to say, and simply nodded slightly to indicate that he understood. Lee Ichuan breathed a slight sigh of relief when she saw that he understood. She cautiously looked around to make sure that the other customers in the cafe were far away and no one was paying special attention to this corner. Then, she first turned up the collar of her coat higher, almost covering her face and ears, and then pulled down the brim of her fisherman's hat to make it difficult to see her face from the side and back. After taking these protective measures, she carefully hooked the edge of the mask with 2 fingers and gently took it off. The mask was removed, revealing a face that was beautiful and charming even without makeup. Her skin was fair and delicate, and her features were exquisitely sculpted. Her eyes were especially beautiful, clear and bright, with slightly upturned corners, giving them a natural liveliness. Her nose was small and straight, and her lips were a light cherry pink. Without the heavy makeup and glamorous costumes of the stage, she now appears without makeup, lacking some of the dazzling aura of a star, but possessing a clean and refreshing charm like a girl next door. However, her outstanding natural beauty and temperament are still undeniable. She only turned her face towards Chen Hao, keeping the rest of her body concealed, and explained to Chen Hao again in a low voice. Chapter 63, A Cooperation Agreement with the Pop Star. I'm so sorry, Teacher Chen, I made such a mess of things. There's really no way around it. Those paparazzi and some fans are just too powerful these days, they can see into everything. If you're accidentally photographed, it becomes another messy news story. I can only do it secretly like this, I hope you'll forgive me. When we talk later, please try to keep your voices down, and please don't mention my name, okay? Looking at the fresh face that he had seen many times on TV and the internet, but was now so close to him, Chen Hao's strange feeling about the other person's previous refusal to call the police instantly dissipated. I see, it's because they were afraid of revealing their identities and causing unnecessary trouble. He nodded understandingly and lowered his voice. It's okay, I understand. Public figures have their own inconveniences. Seeing that Chen Hao was so understanding, Lee Ichuan felt much more at ease, and her smile became more genuine. She recalled what had just happened and still found it unbelievable, her voice filled with excitement and gratitude. What a coincidence! I ran into a bit of an accident on my way here, and I never expected that you would be the one to help me. Teacher Chen, thank you so much. If it weren't for you, I would have been in big trouble today. She was referring to the incident of her bag being snatched. Chen Hao smiled and said calmly, Miss Li, you're too kind. It was nothing. Anyone who saw that situation would have helped if they were able. That's no small feat. Your skills are clearly the result of training. Li Yichuan's eyes sparkled, making no attempt to hide her admiration for Chen Hao's skills, but she quickly steered the conversation back to the main topic. But let's get down to business first. Teacher Chen, I heard your song on Kuga yesterday and I was truly amazed. Especially Unfinished Melody, I've listened to it on repeat so many times. And those other 9 songs you composed, every single one of them is amazing, different in style but all of super high quality. I have a favor to ask. I'd like to cover these 10 of your songs and make them the title tracks on my next album. When she spoke of music, the light in her eyes became even more intense, and her tone became more earnest and urgent. Chen Hao could feel her love for music and her genuine appreciation for his work, which made him quite happy. He nodded and smiled, thank you, Ms. Li, for liking my song so much. I have no problem with collaborating with you. Li Yichuan was overjoyed upon hearing this, and then immediately made a more specific request. That's great. Teacher Chen, since these are your original songs, you must have the deepest understanding of them. I was thinking, could you please rearrange these songs according to my voice characteristics and style? Of course, the copyright and original authorship will definitely belong to you. I just hope that the final version will be more suitable for my singing and more in line with the overall concept of my album. This is a very professional and reasonable request. Different singers have different voices, singing styles, and temperaments. The same song can be given a different vitality through adjustments to the arrangement. Chen Hao agreed without hesitation. Sure, no problem. I also know a little about music arrangement, so I can redesign it based on your voice. Know a little? Li Yichuan thought of his impressive list of independent compositions and thought to herself, your slight knowledge is probably better than many professional arrangers. She asked with concern, so, how long will it take? What are your plans regarding the timeline? Chen Hao thought about it for a moment. His epic musical skills allowed him to reach the pinnacle of control over arrangement. Rearranging the arrangement framework and details of 10 songs to suit Li Yichuan's vocal characteristics was not a particularly complicated task for him. He estimated that if he focused his efforts, he could probably. A few hours, Chen Hao gave a time frame. A few hours? Li Yichuan almost thought she had misheard. Her eyes widened, and her voice involuntarily rose a little. She quickly covered her mouth, lowered her voice, and looked completely incredulous. Teacher Chen, you mean rearranging 10 songs? In just a few hours? How is that possible? Even the most top-notch music arrangers usually need several days or even longer to refine a song into a specific arrangement tailored to a particular singer. 10 songs, several hours? This efficiency is simply unheard of. Seeing her shocked expression, Chen Hao simply smiled calmly. It should be fine. I'm quite familiar with these pieces, and my ideas are clear. Of course, we can discuss the specific details further. Looking at his determined expression and recalling his incredible musical talent, a computer science student who could independently create 10 high-quality original songs, Li Yichuan suddenly felt, perhaps this really was possible for him? She suppressed the shock in her heart and nodded. Okay, then let's do it this way for now. Teacher Chen, your efficiency is truly admirable. Next, the two began to discuss specific cooperation models. Li Yichuan originally thought that Chen Hao was a pure musical genius, but might be inexperienced or stubborn in business negotiations. She didn't expect Chen Hao to have such a clear mind. For a collaboration model, I prefer copyright revenue sharing, Chen Hao stated directly. The copyright and original authorship rights of these 10 songs belong to me. We authorize you to sing, record, and release albums, including subsequent use in commercial performances and the production of music videos. We will share the related profits proportionally. This was exactly what Li Yichuan wanted. While buying out the copyright is convenient by paying in full upfront, for a singer of her caliber, if the song becomes a huge hit, the revenue sharing later on would be more favorable, and it would also better reflect respect for the original author and the possibility of long-term cooperation. No problem, I agree to the revenue sharing model, Li Yichuan readily agreed. What specific ratio do you think would be appropriate, Professor Chen? After a brief and amicable discussion, the two finally agreed to split the profits 50-50. This is a proportion that is relatively fair to both parties and reflects sufficient respect for Chen Hao as the creator. Chen Hao granted Li Yichuan exclusive rights to perform these 10 songs for a specified period. Chen Hao retains the right to the original version, which can be used for album production, single release, commercial performances, advertising, etc. With the basic cooperation framework agreed upon, Li Yichuan felt a huge weight lifted off her shoulders and her spirits soared even higher. She asked, "Mr. Chen, when is a convenient time for you? Let's finalize the cooperation agreement as soon as possible. Also, I'm very eager to hear your rearranged version." Chen Hao thought about his plans for tomorrow. "Tomorrow is Saturday, I have time." "That's great!" Li Yichuan exclaimed immediately. "How about tomorrow morning, at 10 o'clock? Is that alright? The location is in my studio. It's quiet and fully equipped, perfect for listening to a demo. I'll send you the address via WeChat." "Sure, no problem," Chen Hao agreed. Li Yichuan immediately took out her phone and sent the studio's detailed address to Chen Hao via WeChat. Seeing Chen Hao receive and reply received, she was filled with anticipation. Chapter 64. She's just as beautiful as you. With the basic issues settled, the atmosphere became much more relaxed. Chen Hao glanced at the time and, thinking it was about time, said to Li Yichuan, "Ms. Li, the collaboration is roughly settled. I will be at your studio at 10 a.m. tomorrow." He paused, as if remembering something, and then casually added, "By the way, I'm bringing my girlfriend along tomorrow, is that convenient?" "Girlfriend?" Li Yichuan's hand, which was holding the coffee cup, paused almost imperceptibly. Her heart skipped a beat, as if she had been gently bumped by something. She looked up at Chen Hao, who sat opposite her with a calm expression and a natural, gentle smile on his face, the kind that comes with mentioning someone close to you. Li Yichuan quickly lowered her eyes, using the act of drinking coffee to conceal her momentary daze. She didn't expect that Chen Hao already had a girlfriend. An inexplicable sense of loss, like a subtle electric current, silently swept across her heart. It was very light, yet it surprised and puzzled her. She had only met this person for the first time today. Although his talent and his act of bravery just now were impressive, how could this be? She showed no sign of anything amiss, put down her cup, and resumed her polite and friendly smile, her voice still soft. "Of course, you're welcome. Teacher Chen's girlfriend must be very beautiful, right?" She followed up on the topic, her tone carrying just the right amount of curiosity and flattery. Chen Hao smiled, his eyes filled with obvious pride and tenderness. "Yes, she's very beautiful. She's the undisputed campus belle of our Shanghai University." He glanced at Li Yichuan and casually added, "Just as beautiful as you." "Just as beautiful as you." These words reached Li Yichuan's ears, causing her heart to skip a beat without warning, and then start beating faster again. She maintained a smile on her face, but a ripple of emotion stirred within her that she herself couldn't quite understand. Is he complimenting my looks? Why did I feel a little uncomfortable, yet also vaguely happy, when I heard him say that? She quickly suppressed this inexplicable feeling, thinking that it was probably because she hadn't been praised so directly to her face in a long time, especially from such a talented man. "You flatter me, Teacher Chen." Li Yichuan replied politely, feeling a slight warmth in her cheeks. Fortunately, the lighting in her previous running had already given her a rosy complexion, so it wasn't noticeable. "Then it's settled. See you at the studio tomorrow morning." "Okay." Chen Hao nodded, feeling that now that the important matters were settled, he shouldn't take up any more of the other party's time. After all, she was a big star and her schedule must be very full. "The matter is settled, so I won't take up any more of Miss Li's time. See you tomorrow." "See you tomorrow." Li Yichuan nodded. Chen Hao waved to the waiter and paid for the coffee. Li Yichuan didn't argue with him, but quickly put her mask and hat back on, covering herself up again. The two walked out of the coffee shop together. Standing at the entrance of the coffee shop, the afternoon sun was a bit dazzling. Chen Hao took out his phone, ready to call a ride-hailing service back to the villa. At this moment, Li Yichuan, who was standing next to him, suddenly asked, "Teacher Chen, did you come by car?" Chen Hao looked up and replied, "Yeah, I came by taxi." Li Yichuan seemed to hesitate for a second, then said in a light tone, "I drove here, how about I give you a ride home? It's on my way anyway." She pointed to the inconspicuous gray Buick not far away. Chen Hao was somewhat surprised. He glanced at the car and then looked at Li Yichuan. Although she covered her face, you could tell from her eyes that she was serious. He thought for a moment and said, "Wouldn't this be too much trouble for you? You must have a lot of other things to do, right?" Lee Ichuan waved her hand, her tone tinged with self-deprecation and helplessness. "No trouble at all. I did have a business event scheduled for this afternoon, but I've already cancelled it so I can come see you and discuss a collaboration. So for now, everything is fine." She didn't elaborate on the potential penalties and follow-up troubles of cancelling the event, appearing quite relaxed. "Did you turn down a business event?" Chen Hao was slightly taken aback. He never expected that his songs would be so attractive to Lee Ichuan, to the point that she was willing to turn down important commercial activities to meet and discuss things in detail. It seems she really values this collaboration. This boosted Chen Hao's confidence in his work, and he also felt that Lee Ichuan was indeed a very serious and even somewhat persistent person when it came to music. "In that case, I won't stand on ceremony. Thank you for your help, Miss Lee." Chen Hao no longer declined and readily thanked him. "No trouble at all, get in the car." Lee Ichuan smiled and led Chen Hao to her car. The two got into the car, with Chen Hao sitting in the passenger seat. The car's interior was very clean, with no unnecessary decorations, only a faint, pleasant car air freshener scent. Lee Ichuan was about to use the car's navigation system to navigate to Shanghai University. At this point, Chen Hao gave the address of the villa where he was currently living. It was a high-end villa area known for its quiet environment and tight security. Lee Ichuan paused her typing in the navigation, then turned to look at Chen Hao with some surprise. "This address. Professor Chen, aren't you a student at Shanghai University? Aren't you going back to your dorm?" She remembered Chen Hao saying that he was a third-year computer science student at Shanghai University. Chen Hao answered naturally, "Oh, my girlfriend and I have rented a villa off campus for convenience. So we're living there now." "Renting a villa, and living together?" Lee Ichuan's fingers tightened slightly on the steering wheel. The inexplicable sense of loss in her heart seemed to become clearer, mixed with an indescribable sense of depression. It turns out he not only has a girlfriend, but they've also progressed to living together. She quickly composed herself, nodding as if suddenly realizing something. "Oh, I see. That's good, it's more free and convenient than living in the dormitory." Her voice sounded perfectly normal. She would probably be even more surprised if she knew that Chen Hao was not only living with his girlfriend, but that his girlfriend, Zhang Shuiyao, was pregnant with his child. At this moment, Lee Ichuan only felt a tightness in her chest, as if something was gently pressing down on her. The car smoothly entered the traffic. To dispel the awkward silence in the car, and also out of a curiosity she herself couldn't explain, Lee Ichuan casually asked, "Professor Chen, what's your girlfriend's name? Is she also from Shanghai University?" "Her name is Zhang Shuiyao." Mentioning Zhang Shuiyao, Chen Hao's tone unconsciously softened. "We are classmates." Chapter 65 Unrequited Love. "Who misses you?" "Zhang Shuiyao, that's a very nice name," Lee Ichuan repeated softly, then tentatively asked. "You two must have a very good relationship, judging from the way you mentioned her." "Yes, very good." Chen Hao's answer was brief but firm. He looked out the car window at the rapidly receding street scene, a smile playing on his lips. "The 10 songs I wrote, including Unfinished Melody, were actually all written for her. This is kind of a record of some of our feelings and stories. They were all written for her." These words were like a pebble thrown into Lee Ichuan's heart, creating ripples of bittersweet emotion. She gripped the steering wheel tighter, her nails digging lightly into her palm. It turns out that those moving melodies and heartfelt lyrics that amazed her, that she played on repeat, and that she even turned down work to pursue, were all gifts from another girl. It was created by Chen Hao with all his love for another girl. A strong sense of envy, even a hint of jealousy, welled up uncontrollably from some corner of my heart. If these songs were written by Chen Hao specifically for Lee Ichuan, how wonderful that would be. The thought flashed through her mind, and she found it both absurd and somewhat shameful. She quickly shook off these inexplicable thoughts and forced herself to concentrate on driving. Then, "Zhang Shuiyao must be very happy." Lee Ichuan heard herself say this, trying to keep her tone calm and sincere. "I'm so glad I have a boyfriend as talented and devoted as you." Chen Hao smiled and said nothing more. The car fell silent again, with only the occasional beeping of the navigation system. Fortunately, the distance wasn't too far, and soon the car arrived at the entrance of the villa area that Chen Hao had mentioned. Due to strict security, outside vehicles were not allowed to enter at will, so Chen Hao got out of the car at the entrance. Ms. Li, thank you for bringing me back. See you tomorrow morning. Chen Hao stood outside the car window and spoke to Li Yichuan in the driver's seat. You're welcome, see you tomorrow. Li Yichuan nodded to him through her mask, trying her best to make her eyes appear bright and natural. Chen Hao waved, turned around, swiped his access card, and walked into the community gate. Li Yichuan did not leave immediately. She sat in the car, her gaze following Chen Hao's tall, receding figure through the window until he turned the corner of a building and completely disappeared from sight. She slowly looked away, but did not start the car. The small space inside the car seemed to still carry the scent of their conversation and the clean, fresh smell of the young man. The emptiness in my heart became clearer, as if something had quietly filled a corner of it, but now it had been taken away, leaving a small, slightly sour gap. She shook her head, finding her sudden emotional outburst both amusing and helpless. Li Yichuan, what are you thinking about? He's talented, has a stable girlfriend, and you're just a collaborator. Focus on music and make a good album, that's what matters. She took a deep breath, started the car, and the gray Buick slowly turned around, merged into the traffic, and drove away from the quiet upscale community. But as the gate to the residential complex grew smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror, the inexplicable sense of loss in her heart did not seem to disappear with it. Chen Hao returned to the villa and unlocked the door with his fingerprint. Upon entering, one sees Zhang Xueyao nestled quietly on the sofa in the soft light of the living room, engrossed in a book. Although Zhang Xueyao was born with a silver spoon in her mouth and was spoiled rotten after being with Chen Hao, she was always very self-disciplined when it came to her studies. Shanghai University is a top-tier institution. Those who can get in are all exceptional individuals. Zhang Xueyao's grades have consistently ranked among the top 3 in their highly competitive major, mostly second, only behind Chen Hao, who has always been number 1. The two are a couple, but also rivals who secretly compete with and encourage each other in their studies. Both are true academic high achievers. Hearing the door open, Zhang Xueyao looked up and saw Chen Hao. A gentle smile immediately spread across her face. She closed the book, casually placed it on the coffee table, and quickly walked over. You're back. Her voice was light and cheerful, with a hint of dependence. She walked up to Chen Hao, naturally opened her arms, and threw herself into his arms, wrapping her arms around his waist and burying her face in his chest. Her warm, soft breasts pressed tightly against his chest, their familiar fragrance filling his nostrils. Chen Hao smiled and hugged her tightly, one arm around her shoulder and back, the other gently stroking her back. He lowered his head and sniffed her hair, teasingly saying, "You already miss me after I've only been gone for a short while?" Held in his arms, Zhang Xueyao listened to his steady heartbeat and felt exceptionally at ease. Hearing his teasing, her pretty face flushed slightly. She lifted her head from his embrace, gave him a coquettish glare, and retorted stubbornly, "You're just being presumptuous. Who misses you? I just got up to stretch my legs." As she spoke, she pretended to push Chen Hao away, but Chen Hao deliberately tightened his arms, preventing her from easily breaking free. Zhang Xueyao struggled symbolically a couple of times but couldn't break free, so she let him be, though she couldn't help but smile. After lingering for a few seconds, Chen Hao finally let go of her hand. Zhang Xueyao's face was still flushed. She turned around and sat back down on the sofa. She picked up the book again and pretended to continue reading, but her eyes drifted towards Chen Hao. Chen Hao took off his coat, hung it up, changed into slippers, and with a smile on his face, walked to the sofa and sat down next to Zhang Xueyao. The sofa was wide, but he insisted on squeezing next to her, reaching out to pull her into his arms. This time it was even more outrageous. His large hand slid directly inside the side of her pajamas, precisely grasping her high, soft breasts. He felt the amazing elasticity and fullness in his palm, and even mischievously squeezed them lightly. What are you doing?" Zhang Xueyao trembled, almost dropping the book, and twisted her body slightly, her voice soft and shy. "I was just being delusional," Chen Hao whispered with a smile in her ear. "I missed you, okay? I wanted to hug you and kiss you the moment I walked in the door." These straightforward words of love made Zhang Xueyao feel as sweet as if she had been filled with honey. She could no longer concentrate on her book. Her body went limp, she stopped struggling, and instead adjusted her posture. She nestled comfortably in Chen Hao's arms, her head pressed tightly against his chest, listening to his steady and powerful heartbeat, her face filled with undisguised happiness and contentment. The two snuggled together quietly for a while, enjoying this cozy time alone. After a while, Zhang Xueyao remembered the important matter. She looked up at Chen Hao's sharply defined jawline and asked softly, "How did your talk with Li Yichuan go today? Did it go smoothly?" Her tone was filled with concern and a hint of curiosity. Chapter 66. I'll go with you tomorrow. Chen Hao played with a strand of Zhang Shuiao's soft hair and nodded. Yes, the talks went quite smoothly. A preliminary cooperation agreement has been reached. The specific details and agreement will be signed at her studio tomorrow. Really? That's great. Zhang Shuiao's eyes lit up when she heard this, genuinely happy for Chen Hao. She sat up slightly from Chen Hao's embrace, looked at him, and analyzed. Li Yichuan is now one of the most popular female singers in China, with a large fan base and a good reputation. If she sings your song, it's like giving your work the best promotion. Before long, your name Chen Hao will definitely be a household name in the music industry. Then you'll be a recognized musical prodigy. She seemed to already see Chen Hao's bright future, and she was even happier than if she had succeeded herself. Seeing her excited expression, Chen Hao smiled and pinched her cheek. Thank you for your kind words. But whether I become famous or not is another matter. Being able to collaborate is also an affirmation of my work. Of course. The songs my husband writes are the best. Zhang Shuiao praised him generously, then smiled a little shyly after saying that. Chen Hao recalled the dramatic scene from that afternoon and found it quite amusing, so he said to Zhang Shuiao, "By the way, let me tell you a little story from today. It was quite a coincidence." "What little incident happened?" Zhang Shuiao asked curiously. "On my way to the coffee shop, I happened to witness someone snatching my bag. The victim was a woman, who was wrapped up very tightly, with a hat and mask covering her face so well that even her own mother couldn't recognize her. I easily tackled the thief and snatched the bag back," Chen Hao said casually. "Ha? Is that so? Are you all right?" Upon hearing this, Zhang Shuiao immediately looked Chen Hao up and down nervously. "It's all right, just a petty thief. I'll take care of him in no time." Chen Hao patted her hand reassuringly. Interestingly, I later met Li Yichuan at a coffee shop and discovered the strange woman who had her bag snatched was wrapped up tightly and refused to call the police was Li Yichuan herself. She was afraid of revealing her identity and attracting paparazzi. Upon hearing this, Zhang Shuiao's mouth dropped open in surprise, and then she couldn't help but burst out laughing. "My God! The way you two met is so unique. It's like something out of a movie. A hero saves a damsel in distress, only to discover he's the person he was supposed to meet to discuss business? What a coincidence!" "Yes, I also think it's quite a coincidence," Chen Hao said with a smile. Zhang Shuiao laughed for a while, then suddenly thought of something, looked at Chen Hao, and her eyes were mischievous. "A hero saves the damsel in distress. So, is superstar Li Yichuan especially grateful to you and wants to repay you with her body?" Although she was joking, there was still a subtle probing in her tone that she herself was unaware of. Chen Hao could easily tell what was going on, so he deliberately put on a stern face and reached out to tickle Zhang Shuiao's ticklish spot. "What nonsense are you talking about? He's a big star, what hasn't he seen? He's just saying thank you normally. Besides, don't you know who's in my heart?" "Ouch. Stop it. I'm sorry. Zhang Shuiao was extremely ticklish, and Chen Hao's tickling made her giggle. She squirmed on the sofa, begging for mercy repeatedly. I know you only have eyes for me. Stop." Chen Hao then stopped and pulled her back into his arms. Zhang Shuiao laughed so hard she could hardly breathe, her cheeks flushed, and tears welled up in her eyes as she leaned softly against him. Once he had caught his breath, Chen Hao began to discuss tomorrow's plans. "By the way, Shuiao, I'm going to Li Yichuan's studio tomorrow morning to sign an agreement. Why don't you come with me?" "Me?" Zhang Shuiao paused for a moment, her brows furrowing slightly, hesitant. "Would it be appropriate for me to go with you? That's where you're discussing serious matters. I'm just an outsider." "Why isn't it appropriate?" Chen Hao interrupted her, his tone matter of fact. "You're my girlfriend, not a stranger. Besides, I've already told Li Yichuan that I would take you with me, and she didn't object. Just come with me, and maybe meet your favorite celebrity?" Hearing that Chen Hao had already greeted the other party and that Li Yichuan had not objected, Zhang Shuiao's hesitation immediately disappeared, replaced by a surge of happiness and sweetness. He thought of her in everything he did, and even took her with him to work. This feeling of being valued and cared for warmed her heart. She abandoned all restraint, nodded vigorously, tilted her head back, and kissed Chen Hao on the chin, her voice filled with joy. "Okay. I'll go with you tomorrow." After saying that, she buried her face in Chen Hao's warm chest again, unable to suppress the smile on her lips. Tomorrow, she will meet her favorite singer, Li Yichuan, and as Chen Hao's girlfriend, she will accompany him to complete an important collaboration. Just thinking about it makes me feel wonderful. Chen Hao held Zhang Shuiyao tenderly for a while longer before letting go of her and saying, "By the way, Li Yichuan wants me to rearrange those 10 songs based on her voice characteristics. I'm going to the recording studio now to work on it, and I'll try to finish it tonight." Zhang Shuiyao nodded obediently, sat up straight from his lap, and tidied her slightly messy hair. "Okay, you go ahead and do your work. I'll take another look at my books." She pointed to the thick set of postgraduate entrance exam materials next to her. "I still need to prepare for the postgraduate entrance exam. I can't fall behind." "Okay, don't overwork yourself." Chen Hao kissed her forehead, then got up and walked towards the recording studio he had specially built on the first floor. Inside the recording studio, various professional equipment were quietly displayed. Chen Hao turned on his computer and professional audio workstation, and pulled up the original project files for the 10 songs. His epic musical skills give him extraordinary control and creativity in melody, harmony, and orchestration. Li Yichuan's clear and distinctive voice quickly came to mind, as well as the pop-oriented, refined yet emotionally powerful style of her previous songs. He didn't drastically alter the original song's beautiful structure, but instead made subtle adjustments to Li Yichuan's voice while preserving the core melody and emotional tone. For example, adding a more ethereal and atmospheric synthesizer to the intro of unfinished melody makes the vocals more impactful when they enter. To enhance the intensity of the drum beats and electric guitar in the chorus of Flying Against the Wind, creating a more exhilarating feeling. The string arrangements for several ballads were adjusted to better suit the delicate expressions of female singers. His hands moved rapidly between the MIDI keyboard and mouse, and he wore monitoring headphones, his expression focused. Various timbres are skillfully combined, parameters are adjusted, and effects are layered in his hands. The already high-quality song, under his reworking, seems to have been given a new look that is more suitable for Li Yichuan, which not only retains the essence of the original work, but also exudes a unique brilliance that fits the singer's characteristics. Chapter 67: The First Legendary Skill. Time slips away unnoticed. When Chen Hao added the final touches to the mastering of the last song and saved all the project files, he realized that quite a bit of time had passed. But for him, this work efficiency was already considered incredibly fast. Just as he stretched and was about to turn off the device, a system notification clearly appeared in his mind. Ding! Host detected engaging in music practice composition work. Congratulations! You have accumulated 323 music experience points. Ding! Triggered a 10,000x return effect. You have received a 1999x experience bonus. Refund calculation: 323 points 1,999 times equals 645,677 experience points. Current music skill level: Epic 1,937,626 10 million. Great! Chen Hao was delighted. Although the skill level did not increase directly this time, the gain of nearly 650,000 experience points was still incredibly generous. He felt that he had gained a deeper understanding and control over music, especially in the subtle aspects of arrangement. He was just about to get up and go to the living room to check on Zhang Shuiya when he suddenly heard very light footsteps behind him. Immediately afterwards, a delicate and pleasant fragrance, unique to Zhang Shuiya, wafted over. Chen Hao smiled inwardly, pretending not to notice anything, and continued to face away from the door, pretending to organize the sheet music on the table. The next second, a pair of soft arms wrapped around his waist from behind, followed by a warm and fragrant body pressing against him. Those two amazingly soft and elastic mounds pressed firmly against his back, bringing an incredibly comfortable sensation. "Are you done with your work?" Zhang Shuiya pressed her face against his back and asked in a soft voice. Chen Hao then turned around as if waking up, and pulled her into his arms, lowering his head to kiss her red lips, which looked especially alluring because they were slightly pouting. Zhang Shuiya gave him a symbolic, gentle push, then closed her eyes, wrapped her arms around his neck, and responded awkwardly yet passionately. Chen Hao's tongue easily pried open her pearly teeth, intertwining with her uvula and savoring her sweetness. After a passionate kiss, Zhang Shuiya was breathless and leaned against Chen Hao's chest with a dazed look in her eyes, her body as limp as water. She could feel the desire stirring deep within her body, her cheeks flushed with a captivating blush, her fingers unconsciously gripping Chen Hao's collar, looking up at him with eyes that conveyed a clear meaning. Seeing her so moved, Chen Hao felt extremely fond of her, but he deliberately pinched her small nose lightly and teased her with a low chuckle. You always say I'm not a repressed pervert? I think you're the repressed pervert. Just one kiss and you want it? Zhang Shuiya was both embarrassed and angry that he had seen through her thoughts. Her face flushed, she punched his chest and said, You're the one who's a big pervert. Okay, it's me. Chen Hao coaxed her with a smile, hugging her and kissing her cheek again. But not now, it's getting late. Are you hungry? I'll go make you dinner. You need to be well fed to have energy, right? Zhang Shuiya blushed even more at his second half of the sentence, and gave him a coquettish glare, but she was indeed a little hungry. She nodded obediently. Yes, I am a little hungry. Wait, your husband will make you something delicious. Chen Hao kissed her again before letting go of her and turning to go to the kitchen. After putting on his apron, Chen Hao glanced at the ingredients in the refrigerator and quickly got a plan in mind. Tonight he plans to cook 3 classic Shandong dishes, paying close attention to the cooking time and seasoning, a perfect opportunity to test the depth of his epic culinary skills. The first dish was braised sea cucumber with scallions. The prepared sea cucumbers were plump and chewy, and he cut them into even strips. Heat oil in a pan, add the chopped large sections of Shandong scallion whites, and sauté over low heat until the scallion whites turn golden brown and fragrant, fully releasing the flavor of the scallion oil. Remove the scallion segments, leaving some oil in the pot. Quickly stir-fry the sea cucumber, add cooking wine to remove any fishy smell, then add carefully prepared soy sauce, sugar, and broth. Finally, return the stir-fried scallion whites to the pot and cook together. The key is controlling the heat. Reduce the sauce over high heat so that the thick, glossy broth completely coats each sea cucumber. Finally, drizzle with a little scallion oil to enhance the shine and aroma. The finished sea cucumber is soft, tender, and flavorful, with a rich scallion aroma and a bright red color. The second course is the 9-turned large intestine. This dish requires a complex process and demands a great deal of patience and skill from the chef. Chen Hao cleaned the large intestine very thoroughly, blanched and boiled it, then cut it into even pieces. Heat oil and rock sugar in a wok until they turn a beautiful dark reddish brown color. Add the large intestines and stir-fry until they are coated with the caramelized sugar. Then add scallions, ginger, garlic, cooking wine, soy sauce, vinegar, white sugar, and powdered spices cinnamon, cardamom, etc., as well as stock. First bring it to a boil over high heat, then simmer over low heat. During the process, the wok needs to be shaken several times to prevent sticking and to ensure that the large intestine is heated evenly and absorbs all the flavors of the seasonings. The broth thickens and completely coats the large intestine, giving it an enticing reddish brown color. The 5 flavors of sour, sweet, bitter, spicy, and salty blend together, resulting in a soft yet chewy texture and an irresistible aroma. The third dish is cattail shoot soup and milk broth. This soup is refreshing and helps to cut through the richness of other dishes. Chen Hao selected the tenderest cattail shoot hearts, washed them, and cut them into sections. Use a rich, creamy broth made from old hen, pork hock, dried scallops, etc. as the base. After boiling, add cattail shoots and cook for only a short while to keep the cattail shoots crisp, tender, and sweet. Seasoning uses only a little salt to bring out the natural flavor of the cattail shoots and the richness of the milky broth. The soup is milky white, the cattail shoots are bright green, and it has a light and fresh flavor. Just as he was plating the last dish of milk soup with cattail shoots, a system notification rang in his mind that excited him more than ever before. Ding! Host detected engaging in culinary practice cooking a complex dish. Congratulations! You have accumulated 289 cooking skill experience points. Ding! Triggered 10000x return effect. You have received a 10000x experience bonus this time. Refund calculation, 289 points 10,000 times equals 2,890,000 experience points. Congratulations! Your cooking skill experience points are full, and your level has increased. Current cooking skill level, Legendary 1,120,100 million. Legendary level. A critical hit of 10,000 times. Chen Hao was overjoyed. This is the first legendary skill he has acquired. And it's also a precious 10000x critical hit return. A torrent of culinary knowledge and instincts, as vast as the sea and as delicate as silk, surged in. It is not only the pinnacle of culinary skills from all major Chinese cuisines: Shandong, Sichuan, Cantonese, Jiangsu, Fujian, Zhejiang, Hunan, and Anhui. It also contains the essence of major culinary styles from around the world: French, Italian, Japanese, Southeast Asian, Mexican, etc. He has even mastered many lost ancient methods, palace secrets, and folk skills. Chapter 68, Earning over 500,000 yuan in one day through songs and games. Chen Hao's understanding of ingredients, control of heat, masterful use of seasoning, and even the connection between food and culture have reached an unprecedented level, a realm that can be described as Tao. At this moment, in terms of culinary skills alone, he is undoubtedly at the pinnacle of the world, unmatched by anyone. Countless thoughts flash through his mind in an instant. I can make specialties from all over the world for Shueyo in the future. She doesn't need to go abroad or travel to enjoy the most authentic and top-quality international flavors at home. Pregnant women need nutrition and a good mood, and a diverse diet is undoubtedly one of the best ways to achieve this. Suppressing his excitement, Chen Hao placed 3 carefully prepared Shandong dishes on the restaurant table, and their aroma instantly filled the air. Shueyo, dinner's ready, he called out towards the living room. Zhang Shueyo had long been unable to sit still because of the aroma, and upon hearing this, she immediately put down her book and ran over. Looking at the 3 tempting dishes on the table, which smelled delicious, she couldn't help but swallow. Wow! Chen Hao, the dishes you made today look delicious. She sat down eagerly, and Chen Hao had already served her rice. Zhang Shueyo first tasted the braised sea cucumber with scallions. The soft and tender sea cucumber and the rich aroma of scallions melted in her mouth, making it incredibly delicious. She ate another piece of braised pork intestines. The complex 5 flavors blended perfectly, the taste was wonderful, and her eyes narrowed. Take another sip of the milk soup with cattail shoots. The rich broth and the crisp cattail shoots create a perfect contrast, refreshing and not greasy. My God! Chen Hao! Zhang Shueyo looked up at Chen Hao, her face full of amazement and disbelief. Your cooking skills, have they secretly improved again? This is so delicious. It's even better than what I made for lunch today. No, it's a million times better. Chen Hao felt extremely satisfied looking at her exaggerated yet adorable expression. He placed a piece of food on her plate, smiled, and said, I'm glad you like it. I'll cook for you every day from now on. Not just Shandong cuisine, but also Sichuan cuisine, Cantonese cuisine, French cuisine, Italian cuisine, Japanese cuisine, whatever you want to eat, I can make it for you. It guarantees you can enjoy global cuisine without leaving home. Upon hearing this, Zhang Shueyo was first taken aback, and then a surge of emotion and sweetness welled up in her heart. She never expected that Chen Hao would consider her so much, even when cooking for her. Her nose felt a little sore, and she blinked hard to keep the tears from falling. She nodded vigorously, her voice slightly choked. Chen Hao, you're so good to me. Silly girl, if I don't treat you well, who else should I treat well? Chen Hao ruffled her hair. Eat quickly, while it's hot. After dinner and cleaning up the dishes, Chen Hao and Zhang Shueyo snuggled together on the large, soft sofa in the living room. Zhang Shueyo naturally sat down next to Chen Hao, resting her head on his shoulder, holding a textbook for postgraduate entrance exams in her hand, and quietly reading it under the soft light of the floor lamp next to her. Chen Hao then reached out one hand and naturally wrapped it around her waist, while using the other hand to pick up his phone and casually swipe around. He first opened the background of Kugu music. Although only a day had passed, he still wanted to see the real-time changes in the data. When the earnings figures appeared, a slight smile appeared on his lips. Today I earned an additional 51,912.38 yuan. Moreover, his 10 songs still dominate the top of the new song chart 24 hours, with Unfinished Melody firmly at the top and the other 9 songs all squeezed into the top 20, showing no signs of waning popularity. The positive reviews and discussions in the comments section continue to increase. What are you looking at? Why are you laughing so happily? Although Zhang Shueyao's eyes were fixed on the book, her mind was clearly mostly on Chen Hao. Noticing the change in his expression, she immediately turned her head and asked. Chen Hao tilted his phone screen towards her and said with a smile, Look how much I made from those songs today. Upon hearing this, Zhang Shueyo became interested, stopped reading her book, and leaned closer to the screen to take a closer look. When she saw the number clearly, her beautiful eyes widened instantly, and her small mouth opened slightly. 50,000, more than 51,000? You made that much in just one day? She abruptly turned to look at Chen Hao, her face filled with disbelief. My God! Chen Hao, the speed at which you make money from songwriting is terrifying. This is almost equal to, or even exceeds, the monthly salary of a professor at a university in Shanghai. She became more and more excited as she spoke, and the adoration in her eyes when she looked at Chen Hao was practically overflowing. "You're amazing. You can earn so much just by writing songs." Chen Hao found her even more excited than himself, incredibly adorable, and couldn't resist leaning down to kiss her cheek. "We were just lucky people liked listening to it." "It's not luck. It's skill." Zhang Shuiao corrected him, feeling secretly pleased, even happier than if she had made money herself. Chen Hao smiled, exited the Kugu background, and then casually opened the developer backends of Steam and WeGame to check the revenue of the game Function Auto Chess for the day. Although the game has been released for some time, its revenue has remained stable thanks to consistently positive reviews and a certain amount of spontaneous word of mouth from players. When the combined revenue from the two platforms was displayed, even Chen Hao himself raised an eyebrow slightly: 452,178.64 yuan. Zhang Shuiao was standing right next to him, so she naturally saw the even larger number. This time, she even forgot to exclaim in surprise, just staring blankly at the screen, then at Chen Hao, and it took her a long time to find her voice. This is the game's revenue for today? Over 450,000? Chen Hao nodded. Yes, both platforms combined. Zhang Shuiao was completely convinced. She sighed softly, leaned on Chen Hao's shoulder, and murmured, "I was already thinking it was terrifying that you could earn over 50,000 yuan a day writing songs, but I didn't expect your game to be even scarier. 450,000 a day. That's equivalent to how much an average person's annual income? And you developed this game all by yourself. Chen Hao, just how many more talents do you have that I don't know about? Other people develop games with a whole team, burning through money and time, and there's no guarantee of success. But you, one person, in just a few days, created something this profitable." She didn't know how to describe her feelings: shock, pride, admiration, a mix of emotions. Chen Hao, however, appeared very calm. He put his arm around Shuiao and analyzed, "The game revenue looks high, but this is about the peak. Function Auto Chess is essentially a single-player game with online multiplayer battles, based on a buy-to-play model with some in-app purchases. Now that most players have already bought what they wanted, new growth will slow down, and it's estimated that daily revenue will start to decline soon. The revenue curve for single-player games is like this: it's difficult to have sustained continuous bursts of growth." Chapter 69: Rewarding You. Let's take a bath together. Zhang Shuiao was puzzled. Even at the peak, this is still amazing. More than 400,000 a day. Many people dream of doing that but can't. Don't set your expectations too high. Chen Hao looked at her, his eyes not filled with smugness, but with a clear light that looked towards the distance. He smiled, his tone relaxed yet confident. "If we're satisfied with such a small achievement, what's the difference between us and a salted fish?" Zhang Shuiao was amused by his words and lightly punched him. "What kind of lazy bum are you? You're more like Versailles." However, she also understood the meaning behind Chen Hao's words and asked curiously, "So what are your plans? Game revenue has peaked. You can't keep relying on stock trading forever, can you? Although you're pretty good at stock trading too." "Of course I have plans." Chen Hao's fingers unconsciously caressed Zhang Shuiao's shoulder. "I'm planning to develop a new game. A large-scale, online game. A massively multiplayer online game?" Zhang Shuiao sat up slightly, looking at him with some concern. "Those kinds of games? I've heard they're incredibly complex to develop, requiring a huge number of people, including planners, programmers, artists, testers, and also operation and maintenance. Can you manage alone? Won't it be too tiring? And won't the investment be too large?" She knew Chen Hao was capable, but the difficulty of developing a large-scale online game was completely different from that of a game of the scale of Function Auto Chess. She was afraid that Chen Hao was working too hard, and she was also afraid that he might encounter setbacks. Chen Hao felt a warmth in his heart when he saw her worried little face. He raised his hand, gently tapped his temple with his finger, and gave a confident yet slightly mysterious smile. "Don't worry. The stuff I have here is better than the world's most powerful supercomputer. Developing a large-scale online game by myself simply means spending more time completing the planning, programming, and art steps in sequence. Technically, there are absolutely no problems." Zhang Shuiao blushed at his natural address of "your husband" and the gesture of nodding his head, feeling both shy and sweet inside. She automatically ignored his somewhat arrogant technical confidence and focused entirely on how he addressed her. Who is your wife?" "Aren't you ashamed?" she said coquettishly, blushing, and reached out to cover Chen Hao's mouth. Chen Hao smiled and dodged away, deliberately winking. I didn't name names. Someone just assumed it was you and then said they didn't know who it was. It was you. It was you. You said it on purpose. Zhang Shuya was both embarrassed and anxious from his teasing, so she simply pounced on him and gently punched his chest with her little fists, like a cat with its fur standing on end. It wasn't very strong, it was just her way of being affectionate. Okay, I said it. Chen Hao smiled, taking her mischievous little hand and pulling her back into his arms. He rested his chin on the top of her head, his voice softening. It was me who said that my future wife can only be Zhang Shuya. For the rest of my life. Zhang Shuya calmed down and nestled obediently in his arms, listening to his steady heartbeat and those gentle yet firm words of love, her heart filled with immense happiness and a sense of security. The initial concerns about developing large-scale games seemed to have been somewhat alleviated by this sense of reassurance. She believed in him, and she would support him no matter what he wanted to do. The two chatted on the sofa for a while, when Zhang Shuyo suddenly remembered Chen Hao's mention of stock trading a few days ago, so she looked up and asked, "By the way, didn't you buy that Hong Kong stock before? What was it called again? Universal Technology? How's it doing now? Did you make money or?" Before she could finish speaking, Chen Hao had already picked up his phone and skillfully logged into the stock trading app. After glancing at his holdings and floating profits and losses, a knowing smile appeared on his lips. Current profit, 2.51 million. Chen Hao turned his phone screen towards Zhang Shuyo and said the number calmly. 2,510,000? Zhang Shuyo jumped up from his shoulder and snatched the phone to look at it carefully. The screen clearly displays the market value of the holdings and the profit figures, which are indeed over 2.51 million. It really went up? And you made so much money? Wasn't it constantly falling when you bought it? She remembered that she had checked it at the time and was worried that Chen Hao might have made a mistake in his judgment. Chen Hao pulled her back into his arms and hugged her, gently rubbing his chin against the top of her head, and said with a slightly smug smile, "How about it? Isn't your husband amazing? Amazing. Absolutely amazing." Zhang Shuya was genuinely impressed this time and nodded vigorously. As it turns out, Chen Hao's eye for stock trading, like his other abilities, is frighteningly accurate. Her previous worries were completely unnecessary. Looking at her adoring gaze, Chen Hao felt a surge of warmth in his heart. He leaned close to her ear, lowered his voice, and asked with a knowing smile and hint. "So your husband made money in the stock market again. Shouldn't you give him a reward?" His breath brushed against her earlobe, his eyes filled with ambiguity. Zhang Shuyo's face flushed red instantly, like a ripe shrimp. She understood perfectly well what this guy was thinking. She lowered her head, her fingers unconsciously twisting the hem of Chen Hao's clothes, her voice barely audible as she mumbled something indistinctly. "As a reward for you, we'll take a bath together, a bath for two." "Huh? What did you say?" "You were too quiet, I didn't hear you." Chen Hao deliberately tilted his ear, trying not to laugh and teasing her. Zhang Shuya was so embarrassed that she raised her voice slightly, but still kept her head down. "I said, as a reward, we'll take a bath together." "Huh? What? I still didn't hear you. What did you say I'd be rewarded with?" Chen Hao continued to play dumb, his smile growing wider. Zhang Shuya now realized he was doing it on purpose. She was both embarrassed and annoyed, so she pushed him away, her face flushed, and pretended to be angry. "Fine, if you didn't hear me, then forget it. No reward." After saying that, she stood up and walked quickly toward the second-floor bathroom, huffing and puffing actually shyly. "Hey, don't." Chen Hao also lowered his head and gently helped her take off her nightgown. Clothes slipped off one by one, and before the steam could rise, the air had already become scorching hot. They turned on the shower and warm water poured down, instantly soaking their bodies. Zhang Shuyo shyly covered her chest slightly with her arm, but Chen Hao had already squeezed out some shower gel, rubbed it into a rich lather in his palm, and started to apply it to her smooth back. I can do it myself." Zhang Shuyo said softly, her face flushed. "Don't move, we agreed to help each other." Chen Hao's voice sounded somewhat deep amidst the sound of water. His large hands, covered in foam, roamed gently and carefully over her delicate skin. Zhang Shuya's body trembled slightly, whether from the water temperature or from Chen Hao's touch, she didn't know. She had no choice but to reach out, squeeze out some shower gel, and rub it onto Chen Hao's broad chest and back. As they washed, their initial shyness was gradually replaced by intimacy and playfulness. Chen Hao deliberately splashed water at Zhang Xueyao, who screamed and immediately retaliated by cupping water in her hands. The two of them splashed water at each other like children in the misty steam, their laughter mingling with the sound of water. Taking advantage of her inattention, Chen Hao pulled her into his arms. Their wet bodies pressed tightly together, hot water flowing down from their heads and sliding over their tightly embracing skin. After showering, the two used soft, large bath towels to dry each other's bodies. Zhang Xueyao's cheeks were flushed from the steam, and her eyes were moist, making her exceptionally beautiful. Seeing this, Chen Hao felt a surge of anger and scooped Zhang Xueyao up in his arms. "Hey! What are you doing?" Zhang Xueyao exclaimed, instinctively wrapping her arms around Chen Hao's neck. "The reward isn't over yet." Chen Hao carried Zhang Xueyao, strode out of the bathroom, into the bedroom, and gently placed her on the soft bed. The lights were soft, and as Zhang Xueyao watched Chen Hao's handsome face approach, her heart pounded like a drum. She knew what was going to happen next, and she was looking forward to it, but also felt a bit shy and cautious, typical of pregnancy. Chen Hao leaned down and kissed her tenderly. His kisses traveled from her lips to her neck, collarbone, and his hands gently caressed every curve of her body. Zhang Xueyao melted into a pool of spring water beneath him, passively enduring yet involuntarily responding. Because Zhang Xueyao was pregnant, both of them knew where the boundaries lay, but within those boundaries, they used every means to express their love and longing for each other. After a long foreplay and intimacy, both of them were extremely satisfied. Zhang Xueyao lay limply in Chen Hao's arms, breathing slightly, her face flushed with satisfaction. Chen Hao embraced her, gently stroking her smooth back, and placed a light kiss on her sweaty forehead. Finally, he squeezed 2 glasses of juice from fresh oranges, without filtering, to retain the fibrous texture of the pulp. Just as he was plating the stir-fried mushrooms and onions, he heard familiar, very light footsteps behind him, along with that comforting aroma. He didn't turn around, but just smiled slightly and continued what he was doing. The next second, a pair of soft arms wrapped around his waist from behind, and then those 2 familiar, soft and elastic mouths pressed firmly against his back. "What delicious food are you making? It smells so good." Zhang Xueyao pressed her face against his back, her voice languid and sweet, as if she had just woken up. Chen Hao put down the spatula, turned around, pulled her into his arms, and gave her a good morning kiss. Zhang Xueyao responded on tiptoe, and the two exchanged a sweet kiss at the kitchen doorway in the early morning, a kiss that smelled of mint toothpaste and the aroma of food. "Time for breakfast." Chen Hao patted her shapely buttocks. "Zhang Xueyao blushed and ran away. Soon, the two sat down in the restaurant. Looking at the beautifully presented and fragrant breakfast in front of her, Zhang Xueyao couldn't wait to take a bite of the stir-fried mushrooms, and then cut a piece of bacon dipped in egg and put it in her mouth. "Wow! Chen Hao!" Her eyes lit up. "These mushrooms are so delicious. And this sunny-side-up egg is cooked just right. Your cooking skills are absolutely amazing. I'm glad you like it." Chen Hao smiled and poured her some juice. "Eat quickly, we still need to go to Li Yichuan's studio after we finish eating." "That's right." Remembering the important matter at hand, Zhang Xueyao quickened her eating pace, but still ate with great relish, praising Chen Hao's culinary skills. After enjoying a hearty and comforting breakfast, the two tidied up, changed their clothes, and headed out together to Li Yichuan's studio. Zhang Xueyao drove Chen Hao towards Li Yichuan's studio. The traffic wasn't heavy, and she drove very steadily. She remembered that Chen Hao had mentioned yesterday that he was working on the theory test question bank, so she casually asked, "By the way, Chen Hao, how's your practice for the theory test coming along?" "There's a lot of questions in the bank, over 1,000. Sitting in the passenger seat, Chen Hao was looking out at the street scene. Hearing this, he turned his head and casually replied, "Oh, I've almost finished reviewing it. I reviewed it during class yesterday, and I've basically gone through all of it once. I've already scheduled my driving test part 1 for tomorrow, which is Sunday." "What?" Zhang Xueyao's grip on the steering wheel tightened, and she glanced at Chen Hao in surprise. You only spent 1 class period on it? And you've already booked the exam for tomorrow? Isn't that a bit too rushed? Should we study for a few more days to solidify our understanding?" "I spent 4 or 5 days repeatedly practicing questions before I dared to take the exam." Chapter 71, just the first subject, too easy. Zhang Xueyao is indeed a top student, but she also put in a lot of effort when it came to the driving test, which involves a large amount of memorization and detailed questions. Chen Hao only used 1 class period, isn't that a bit too arrogant? Chen Hao smiled, his tone as relaxed as if he were saying the weather was nice today. It's just the theory test, it's too easy. Spending a whole class period going through the question bank is already being very lenient with it. There's no need to waste too much time on this kind of thing. Zhang Shuiao was speechless for a moment. She realized that Chen Hao was a little too confident, or rather, arrogant in some aspects. Although she knew Chen Hao was a top student and better than her, she thought he couldn't be this good. The question bank for Subject 1 contains many details of traffic regulations, signs, and markings. It's easy to get confused or forget them if you don't review them several times. Chen Hao, I know you're capable, Zhang Shuiao tried to persuade him. But you can't take the theory test too lightly. If you fail, you'll have to reschedule, which will waste even more time. Why don't you go back and do a few more practice problems today? To reinforce your understanding? My time is precious, Shuiao. Chen Hao looked at her worried profile, finding her concerned expression adorable, but his attitude remained firm. I need to use it for more important things. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing, I'll definitely pass the written test. Seeing that he was unmoved by reason, Zhang Shuiao knew that further persuasion would be useless, so she could only sigh helplessly. Fine, whatever. Wait until you fail the exam tomorrow, then let's see if you're still so stubborn. She had already made up her mind that if Chen Hao failed the exam tomorrow, which she thought was very likely, she would give him a good lecture to make him understand the importance of being down to earth. Chen Hao just smiled and didn't explain further. His epic driving skills gave him not only driving techniques, but also a top-level understanding of all traffic regulations and safety knowledge that were deeply ingrained in his mind. For him, going through the question bank once was just a formality. The car quickly drove into a bustling commercial district in the city center and parked in the underground parking garage of a stylish office building. The two got out of the car and took the elevator directly to the floor where Li Yichuan's studio was located. The elevator doors opened, revealing a corridor decorated in a simple yet artistic style. At the end of the road, a heavy glass door came into view, with the stylish words Li Studio and Li Yichuan Studio affixed to it. Two tall security guards in black uniforms stood at the entrance, their expressions serious. As Chen Hao and Zhang Shuiao approached, one of the security guards stepped forward, raised his hand to stop them, and spoke in a polite but uncompromising tone. Excuse me, you two. This is Ms. Li Yichuan's private studio and is not open to the public. How can I help you? Another security guard also eyed them warily, especially when he saw that Zhang Shuiao was outstanding in appearance and Chen Hao had an extraordinary temperament, and that they were not carrying any obvious equipment such as a camera. His scrutiny became even stronger. They've seen plenty of paparazzi and fanatics trying to sneak in, and have long since developed a strict set of preventative measures. Chen Hao stopped and calmly explained. Hello, I have an appointment with Ms. Li Yichuan to come over at 10 o'clock this morning to discuss cooperation and sign a contract. Please let me know. You've made an appointment? Signed a contract? Upon hearing this, the security guard who had spoken earlier revealed an undisguised suspicion, even a hint of mocking sneer. Sir, we're so tired of hearing your reason that we're practically sick of it. Almost every day, people try to sneak in using various excuses, saying things like, we made an appointment, we're friends, or we're here to talk business. And the result? It was either taking photos without our consent or chasing after celebrities, causing a lot of trouble for us and Ms. Li. Another security guard added with a stern face. That's right. Ms. Li's schedule and meetings are all strictly arranged by her agent, and we have records of them. There were no appointments for external visitors this morning. Please leave, both of you. Don't make things difficult for us. If you are truly a fan, please support Ms. Li through official channels. They clearly mistook Chen Hao and Zhang Shuiao for yet another pair of paparazzi trying to slip through their fingers, or wealthy and idol fanatics. After all, Zhang Shuiao is too beautiful, and Chen Hao has an outstanding temperament, unlike ordinary fans. But the more this happens, the more likely it is that the reporter is a well-prepared professional or a fan with an impressive background who wants to get close to their idol. Chen Hao frowned, not expecting to be stopped at the door. He patiently explained, we're really here to discuss serious matters. The collaboration concerns music composition and song licensing. If you don't believe it, you can contact Ms. Li Yichuan or her agent now to confirm. Or, you could ask her to come out for a moment. Show Ms. Li out to see you? The first security guard seemed to have heard a joke, his mockery deepening. Sir, do you know how many people want to see Ms. Li every day? If we bother everyone who says they've made an appointment with her, how will Ms. Li get to work? Who do you think you are? Their attitude was tough and professionally impatient, clearly convinced that Chen Hao was making up an excuse. Seeing that communication was ineffective, Chen Hao was too lazy to waste any more words on the two security guards. He took out his phone, found Li Yichuan's WeChat account, and made a voice call. The phone rang a few times before being answered quickly. "Hello, Teacher Chen? Have you arrived yet?" Li Yichuan's clear voice came through the receiver, with a somewhat empty echo in the background, perhaps from a corridor or a large room. "Ms. Li, I've arrived at your studio." Chen Hao glanced at the two security guards in front of him, who still had stern faces and expressions that said, "Let's see how long you keep up this act," and said calmly. "However, you were stopped by two security guards from your studio. They suspected we were paparazzi or fans and wouldn't let us in. You see, could you come out and greet them, or at least tell them?" "Oh. I got stopped? Oh dear, I'm so sorry, Teacher Chen. I forgot to tell the security guard downstairs. Please wait a moment, I'll be right out. I'm at the door, right? Wait 2 minutes." Li Yichuan's voice was filled with obvious apology and urgency. "Okay, we'll wait for you at the door," Chen Hao said and hung up the phone. He put his phone back in his pocket and looked at the two security guards. The two security guards overheard him mention Miss Li during his phone call, and seeing that his tone was natural and not feigned, the mocking and confident expressions on their faces stiffened slightly. They exchanged a glance, their eyes filled with a hint of surprise and uncertainty. Could it be that this young man really knows Miss Li? You even made plans? Chapter 72. I feel ashamed standing next to you. Less than 2 minutes later, the heavy glass door of the studio was pushed open from the inside. Li Yichuan walked out quickly. Today she was wearing a simple and comfortable beige knit sweater with light-colored jeans, light makeup, and her hair was casually tied in a low ponytail. She looked much clearer and brighter than when she was fully disguised in the coffee shop yesterday. She was less mysterious and more fresh and energetic. She spotted Chen Hao standing at the door immediately, a warm yet slightly apologetic smile spreading across her face. She quickly stepped forward and extended her right hand. "Teacher Chen. I'm so sorry to have kept you waiting. It's all my fault for not explaining things clearly beforehand." Chen Hao also extended his hand and gently shook hers, saying in a calm tone, "Ms. Li, you're too kind. We just arrived too." Li Yichuan let go of his hand and her gaze naturally turned to the girl standing next to Chen Hao. Upon seeing this, her heart stirred slightly. The girl in front of me was tall and slender, wearing a well-tailored light-colored dress. She was exceptionally beautiful, with fair skin and delicate features that looked like they had stepped out of a painting. She had a fresh and refined temperament, with a touch of spoiled naivety. Even standing next to the radiant Li Yichuan, she is in no way inferior, and each has her own merits. She immediately guessed that this must be the Shanghai University beauty girlfriend that Chen Hao had mentioned. "Teacher Chen, who is this?" Li Yichuan smiled and looked at Chen Hao, her tone confirming. Chen Hao gently put his arm around Zhang Xueyao's shoulder and introduced her. "Yes, this is my girlfriend, Zhang Xueyao. Xueyao, this is Ms. Li Yichuan." Although Zhang Xueyao comes from a wealthy family and is quite worldly, she was still a little excited and nervous to see her favorite singer standing in front of her. She quickly extended her hand, her cheeks slightly flushed, her voice clear and excited. "Hello, Miss Li. I am Zhang Xueyao. I especially love your renditions of The Sound of the Wind and Midsummer Light Year. I'm so happy to meet you in person today." Li Yichuan grasped her hand, her smile becoming even more genuine, and sincerely praised her. "Hello, Ms. Zhang. Teacher Chen was right, you are really too beautiful. You are even more beautiful than those female celebrities on TV. What am I compared to you? I feel ashamed when I stand next to you." No. Miss Li, you're the prettiest one. You're a big star, with such a great presence." Zhang Xueyao was embarrassed by the praise and quickly waved her hand, but she felt sweet inside. She didn't expect Li Yichuan to be so easygoing and down to earth. The two exchanged polite compliments, creating a very harmonious atmosphere. The two security guards next to them were now drenched in cold sweat, their faces pale, and they hung their heads, wishing they could disappear into the ground. They never expected that this overly young-looking, indifferent-sounding boy actually knew Li Yichuan. Moreover, judging from Li Yichuan's attitude, she clearly takes it very seriously, addressing him as Teacher Chen with utmost respect. They not only stopped the person, but also made sarcastic remarks. After exchanging pleasantries with Zhang Xueyao, Li Yichuan's smile faded, and she turned to the two security guards, her tone clearly displeased. "What's going on? Teacher Chen is an important guest I specially invited today. Who gave you the right to stop him from coming in?" And you even spoke rudely to him? The two security guards trembled in fright, and the older one immediately bowed and apologized. I'm so sorry, Ms. Lee. It was our mistake. We didn't know this gentleman was really your guest. We thought it was just another one of those trying to sneak in. We were wrong. Completely wrong. The other quickly followed suit with an apology. We were blind. Please forgive us, Ms. Lee, Mr. Chen, and Ms. Zhang. We will never do it again. Li Yichuan looked at them coldly. What's the use of apologizing to me? Apologize to Teacher Chen and Miss Zhang. Yes. The two quickly turned to Chen Hao and Zhang Shuiao, bowing at a 90-degree angle. Mr. Chen, Ms. Zhang, we are so sorry. We were rude and offended you both. Please forgive us this time. Chen Hao didn't really take the minor conflict to heart. The security guard was just doing his job, even if his attitude was a bit off. He waved his hand casually. Never mind, it's fine. You're just following the rules. Just be more careful with your communication in the future. Zhang Shuiao whispered, it's okay. Seeing how generous Chen Hao and Zhang Shuiao were, the two security guards were even more grateful and ashamed, and thanked them repeatedly. Seeing that Chen Hao wasn't going to pursue the matter, Li Yichuan's expression softened somewhat. She said to the two security guards, for Teacher Chen's sake, let's let it go this time. You two remember this, Teacher Chen and Ms. Zhang are honored guests of my studio. From now on, whenever they come, invite them in directly. No more obstruction is allowed. Do you understand? Understood. Understood. Thank you, Miss Lee. Thank you, Mr. Chen. Thank you, Miss Shang. The two security guards, feeling as if they had been granted a pardon, repeatedly assured each other. After dealing with the minor incident at the door, Li Yichuan put on a smile again and gestured for them to enter. Teacher Chen, Ms. Zhang, please come in. It's not convenient to talk outside. Okay, sorry to bother you. Chen Hao nodded, took Zhang Shuiao's hand, and followed Li Yichuan into the studio. Upon entering, you are greeted by a spacious and bright reception hall with a modern and minimalist design. The walls are adorned with abstract artworks and record covers. A faint aroma of fragrance wafted in the air. It was very quiet. As Li Yichuan led them inside, she apologized to Chen Hao again. Teacher Chen, I'm so sorry. It was my oversight that I didn't inform the security guard in advance, which caused you to be in a difficult situation at the entrance. Chen Hao smiled and said, Miss Li, there's no need to take it to heart. It's nothing. As they were talking, a woman in her mid-30s, dressed in a smart suit, walked towards them. She was holding a tablet computer and had a shrewd expression. When she saw Li Yichuan bring in two strangers, she paused for a moment, her gaze quickly sweeping over Chen Hao and Zhang Shuiao with a professional scrutiny. Sister Yu Fei. Li Yichuan waved to her as soon as she saw her, and introduced her warmly as she approached. Let me introduce you. This is the musical prodigy Chen Hao, Teacher Chen, whom I've told you about before. This is Mr. Chen's girlfriend, Ms. Zhang Shuiao. Then she turned to Chen Hao and Zhang Shuiao. Teacher Chen, Shuiao, this is my agent, Xiao Yufei, Sister Yufei. Hello, Miss Xiao. Chen Hao nodded to Xiao Yufei, his attitude neither humble nor arrogant. Zhang Shuiao obediently followed suit, greeting, hello, Miss Xiao. Xiao Yufei gave a standard professional smile and nodded to the two of them. Mr. Chen, Ms. Zhang, hello. Welcome to our studio. The arrangement in Chapter 73 is perfect, even better than I imagined. Xiao Yufei's gaze lingered on Chen Hao's face for a couple more seconds. Is this the young man that Yi Chun insisted on meeting yesterday, even though she had to turn down an important event, and who praised her highly, calling him a musical genius? They're so young. He looks to be in his early 20s at most, and doesn't even look like he's graduated from university yet. Although he is quite handsome and has a calm demeanor, at his age, how much musical talent can he possibly have? Could it be that Yi Chun was fooled by a few nice songs? Xiao Yufei was immediately filled with suspicion and vigilance. As her agent, she has to oversee Li Yichuan's career, especially her partners, whom she must be very careful about. Li Yichuan didn't notice the subtle change in her manager's expression. She was currently preoccupied with the song that Chen Hao had rearranged. She asked Chen Hao somewhat impatiently, Teacher Chen, have you finished rearranging those 10 songs? Is it convenient for us to listen to them now? Chen Hao took a USB drive from his backpack and handed it over. It's all done. All the rearranged project files and simple mixed demos are in there. We've made some adjustments based on your voice characteristics. You can listen to it first and see the effect. Great! Lee Ichuan's eyes lit up as she took the USB drive, as if it were a precious treasure. Let's go to the recording studio now. The equipment is all set, and the sound will be clearer. Yufei, why don't you come and listen too? Xiao Yufei suppressed her doubts and nodded, okay. She was also eager to hear what kind of work this young man, whom Ichuan so highly praised, had produced. Li Ichuan led Chen Hao, Zhang Shuiyao, and Xiao Yufei through the work area to a fully equipped professional recording studio. She eagerly inserted the USB drive Chen Hao had given her into the computer and opened the audio workstation. Let us listen to unfinished melody first, Li Ichuan said, putting on her monitoring headphones. Xiao Yufei also picked up another pair of headphones and put them on. Chen Hao and Zhang Shuiyao sat on the sofa next to them and waited. When the rearranged intro flowed through the high-quality monitor speakers, Li Ichuan's eyes immediately lit up. Chen Hao did not change the basic structure of the moving melody, but made extremely ingenious adjustments to the arrangement. The guitar harmonics in the intro are more ethereal and distant, and the added string accompaniment is warm and layered, creating a stronger overall atmosphere and setting an excellent emotional foundation for the upcoming vocals. More importantly, when she hummed along to the melody in her mind, she could feel the rise and fall of each musical phrase, the arrangement of each breath, and even the harmony. They all seemed tailor-made for her voice, highlighting the advantages of her clear and bright tone. It also leaves perfect space in places where power or vocal transitions are needed, allowing her to fully utilize her singing skills and emotional expression. After listening to the song, Li Ichuan took off her headphones, her face beaming with undisguised surprise and excitement. She turned to Chen Hao, her voice trembling with emotion. Teacher Chen. This arrangement is perfect. It's exactly the feeling I wanted. No, it's even better than I imagined. How did you do that? Your grasp of my voice's characteristics is so accurate. Even Xiao Yufei, who was initially skeptical, now showed obvious surprise on her face. She is not a music producer, but as Li Ichuan's manager, she has heard too many demos and arrangement samples, so she has basic appreciation skills. The rearranged version of Unfinished Melody is professional, exquisite, and perfectly suits Li Ichuan. Its quality is absolutely top-notch. She couldn't help but take another look at Chen Hao, who was sitting calmly on the sofa, and most of her doubts were dispelled. This young man seems to have real talent. I'm glad Miss Li likes it. Chen Hao simply smiled faintly. I love it. I love it so much. Li Ichuan exclaimed quickly. Let's listen to the others. She clicked on all 9 remaining songs in one go and listened to them carefully, one by one. The more she listened, the more delighted she became. The 10 songs, each with a different style, have been reworked by Chen Hao, and each one shines with a brilliance that is more suitable for her to sing and more in line with the aesthetics of the popular market. It retains the original song's deep emotion with delicate touches, while also making clever changes to suit her singing style. The arrangement ideas are both novel and natural, and the overall level of completion is astonishing. After listening to everything, Li Ichuan and Xiao Yufei exchanged a glance, both seeing affirmation in each other's eyes. Teacher Chen, Li Ichuan took a deep breath, her tone extremely serious. I must say that the rearrangement of these 10 songs completely exceeded my expectations, and could even be described as perfect. I am truly in awe of your talent. Xiao Yufei nodded, this time from the bottom of her heart. Mr. Chen's arrangement skills are indeed outstanding. After your adjustments, these songs have been elevated to a higher level in both commercial value and artistry. Ichuan, I think this collaboration was absolutely worthwhile. Li Ichuan was even happier to receive clear confirmation from her agent. She turned to Chen Hao, her smile radiant. Teacher Chen, let's work together. How about we sign the contract now? Okay. Chen Hao nodded. The rest of the process is much simpler. Xiao Yufei had already prepared a draft cooperation agreement based on the intentions expressed in yesterday's discussions. The two sat down in the conference room next to the recording studio, and Chen Hao quickly glanced through the terms and conditions. After confirming that the core contents, such as the profit-sharing ratio, scope of authorization, rights and obligations, were correct as discussed yesterday, he readily signed his name. Li Ichuan also signed her name on the client's side. The contract was made in duplicate, and after exchanging signatures, the cooperation was officially established. That's great! Li Ichuan exclaimed, holding her copy of the contract, in high spirits. Teacher Chen, Shueya, I'm so happy today. To celebrate our successful collaboration and to express my previous apology referring to the security guard incident at the gate, I'll treat you to lunch. Let's have lunch together. There's a nice restaurant nearby. The ambience and food are both good. Chen Hao and Zhang Shuiao initially wanted to decline, but Li Yichuan's attitude was very sincere and enthusiastic, and Xiao Yufei also smiled and persuaded them from the side. Unable to refuse their kind offer, the two agreed. After tidying up a bit, Li Yichuan and Xiao Yufei went downstairs together. Xiao Yufei drove them to a quiet and upscale restaurant nearby. The restaurant's facade is unassuming, but the interior is elegantly decorated, the atmosphere is quiet, and there aren't many customers, so it's obviously quite expensive. Li Yichuan explained that this is a 2-Michelin-starred restaurant, which she comes to occasionally, and the quality of the food is consistently good. The four of them sat down and ordered food. While waiting, Li Yichuan was excitedly discussing the concept of the new album and the recording plan for these songs with Chen Hao. Chapter 74: Developing a new game, Gods and Demons Era, Function. Soon, appetizers and main courses were served one after another. The dishes were beautifully presented, showing the chef's dedication. Zhang Shuiao took a bite of the main course recommended by the waiter, a French pan-seared foie gras with red wine pear. She chewed slowly for a few moments, her brows furrowing slightly, then whispered to Chen Hao beside her. "This tastes pretty average." The foie gras was a bit overcooked, it wasn't tender enough inside, and the sweetness of the red wine pear was a bit overpowering. "It's not as good as yours." Although her voice was soft, the table wasn't big, so both Li Yichuan and Xiao Yufei heard it. Li Yichuan was somewhat surprised. This dish is one of the restaurant's signature dishes, and she thought it was quite good. Is Zhang Shuiao just too picky about taste? Or is it that love is blind, and you think everything your boyfriend does is good? She laughed and smoothed things over. "Really? I think it's alright. I didn't know Teacher Chen could cook. You're really multi-talented." Upon hearing this, Zhang Shuiao immediately perked up, forgetting her earlier slight rudeness, and raised her head, her face filled with undisguised pride. "Miss Li, Chen Hao is more than just a good cook. His cooking is delicious. Much better than what this restaurant makes. Seriously, I'm not kidding. I've never eaten such delicious food before." Her tone was confident, her eyes sparkling, as if she were showing off some unparalleled treasure. Looking at her earnest yet adorable expression, Li Yichuan found it amusing, simply attributing it to the blind adoration of a young girl in love. She followed up politely. "Really? It seems Teacher Chen is truly versatile. I must try Teacher Chen's cooking sometime." This was mostly social nicety. She didn't really believe that a 20-year-old boy could cook better than a chef at a 2-Michelin-starred restaurant. Xiao Yufei didn't take Zhang Shuiao's words seriously, only thinking that this pretty girl was a bit naive and cute. When young people are in love, they always think that everything about the other person is perfect. "Really? Miss Li, Miss Xiao, you're welcome to come visit us anytime," Zhang Shuiao said earnestly, even eagerly wanting to prove it to them. "Chen Hao's cooking is truly, once you've tasted it, you'll never forget it. It makes me feel like I've been eating the wrong food all this time. You all have to try it." Seeing Zhang Shuiao's excited expression, as if she couldn't wait to take them home for dinner, Li Yichuan and Xiao Yufei couldn't help but chuckle and could only nod with smiles. Okay, I'll definitely try it when I have the chance." But deep down, they weren't really taking it seriously. After all, cooking skills require time and a lot of practice to accumulate. How good can a college student be, no matter how skilled? It's probably because Zhang Shuiao likes Chen Hao so much that she's viewed through a thick filter. After finishing what Zhang Shuiao considered a very ordinary lunch, Chen Hao and Zhang Shuiao said goodbye to Li Yichuan and Xiao Yufei and drove back to the villa. Watching Chen Hao's red sports car merge into the traffic and gradually disappear into the distance, Li Yichuan stood at the restaurant entrance, feeling inexplicably empty inside. The collaboration was finalized, and we were very satisfied with the song. This should have been a cause for celebration and excitement. But for some reason, seeing Chen Hao and his incredibly beautiful girlfriend being so intimate always left her with a faint, complex emotion that she couldn't quite explain. She shook her head, banishing these chaotic thoughts, and returned to the studio with Xiao Yufei to begin preparations for the new album. Back at the villa, Zhang Shuiao picked up her postgraduate entrance exam materials and sat on the living room sofa to continue studying. She knew Chen Hao had important business to attend to. Chen Hao went straight into the study and turned on his powerful computer. It's time to start his new project. He had previously considered that the revenue from single-player games had a ceiling, and that to obtain a continuous and substantial cash flow, it was necessary to develop online games that could be operated in the long term. Based on the materials and inspiration he had accumulated from his previous game Function Auto Chess, he decided to continue to delve into the function theme, but this time he wanted to create a much larger world. He opened the document and began building the core framework of the game. Game title: Gods and Demons Era, Function. Game type: massively multiplayer online role-playing game MMORPG. Core theme: based on the classic Chinese mythology Investiture of the Gods, it is reconstructed in a modern and epic style. Set in a chaotic era of broken order and the rise of gods and demons, players will choose to join different factions such as the Chan Sect Order, the Jia Sect Freedom, or neutral independent cultivators. Adventure, grow, and compete for resources in a vast mythological world, participating in large-scale faction wars and epic events that influence the course of the world. Game features: emphasis on the battle between gods and demons and personalized character development. Players can not only cultivate different styles of martial arts and supernatural powers, collect and refine various magical treasures and mounts, but also influence their own faction's reputation and the storyline by making choices. The visuals strive for a perfect blend of splendor and realism, creating a primordial world that is both classical and full of fantastical imagination. Possessing master-level graphic design skills, Chen Hao has top-notch aesthetic sense and expressive ability in color, composition, character, and scene design. Possessing epic computer skills, he has a cutting-edge understanding and ability to implement game engine applications, server architecture, algorithm logic, and code optimization that are ahead of his time. In addition, his master-level typing speed allows him to transform his ideas into lines of precise code in design documents with astonishing efficiency. He began by building the game's most basic and crucial underlying architecture. Fingers flew across the mechanical keyboard, so fast that the individual keys were almost invisible, with only a series of dense and rhythmic tap-tap sounds, like rain pounding on a window. On the screen, complex lines of code flowed down like a waterfall, constructing the game world's basic rules, physics engine, network communication protocols, database structure, and more. At the same time, he opened his graphic design software and began sketching the core concept art for the game. On one side was cold, hard code, and on the other was imaginative art. His brain seemed to be divided into two efficient, independent modules, working in sync. The primordial world that had already taken shape in his mind was gradually being built up and colored in the digital world by his own hands. The majestic yet dilapidated South Heavenly Gate of the Heavenly Court is shrouded in mist, with broken walls and ruins appearing and disappearing. The 9 Netherworld Bloodsea, brimming with malevolent energy, seemed to harbor countless demonic shadows. The Kunlun Immortal Mountain, brimming with spiritual energy, was graced by rare flowers and exotic herbs, where cranes danced gracefully. The grand scenes and the distinctive divine and demonic characters, the majestic Yuancher Tianzuan, the unrestrained Tongtian Jiaozhu, the 12 golden immortals with their own unique characteristics, the demon race's great saints with their various appearances. They all take shape quickly under his pen, rich in detail and full of tension. Chapter 75: The Second Legendary Skill. Time flies when you're focused. The only sounds in the study were the tapping of keyboards, the clicking of mice, and the occasional notification sound when switching software. After an unknown amount of time, Chen Hao completed the first phase of building the basic framework and creating the core resource library. He let out a long sigh of relief, leaned back in the high-backed chair, and stretched his stiff neck and wrists. Just then, a series of pleasant system notification sounds rang in his mind. Ding! Host detected performing artistic practice game concept art scene design. Congratulations! You have accumulated 717 graphic designer experience points. Ding! Triggered a 10,000x return effect. You have received a 2999x experience bonus. Refund calculation: 717 points 2,999 is equal to 2,150,283 experience points. Congratulations! Your graphic designer skill experience points are full, and your level has increased. Current graphic designer skill level: Epic 2,150,283 10 million. Ding! Host detected engaging in computer practical operations game program development. Congratulations! You have accumulated 605 computer experience points. Ding! Triggered a 10,000x return effect. You have received a critical experience return of 3,999 times. Refund calculation: 605 points 3,999 times equals 2,419,395 experience points. Congratulations! Your computer skill experience points are full, and your level has increased. Current computer skill level: Legendary 2,419,395 100 million. Ding! Host detected engaging in typing practice high-speed encoding text input. Congratulations! You have accumulated 611 typing experience points. Ding! Triggered a 10000x return effect. You have received a 1999x experience bonus. Refund calculation: 611 points 1999 times equals 1,221,389 experience points. Congratulations! Your typing skill experience points are full, and your level has increased. Current typing skill level: Epic 1,221,389 10 million. Cool. Chen Hao couldn't help but cheer in his heart. Unexpectedly, this round of intensive development has directly elevated art and typing skills to an epic level, while computer skills have jumped to a legendary level. This is his second legendary skill. In an instant, top-tier algorithms for graphics rendering, cutting-edge concepts in visual art, and ingenious designs for human-computer interaction. A vast amount of knowledge, including deeper computer system principles, massive data processing, and the application of artificial intelligence in games, flooded my mind. His confidence in developing a top-tier masterpiece like Gods and Demons Era Function has increased even more, making him even more confident. Just as he was immersed in the joy of upgrading, Zhang Shuiao's voice, filled with amazement, suddenly came from behind him. Honey, do your fingers have motors installed? How can they be so fast? Chen Hao turned around at the sound and saw that Zhang Shuiao had appeared behind him at some point, holding a half-closed book in her hand. A pair of beautiful eyes stared wide-eyed at him in disbelief, or rather, at his hands that had just left the keyboard. It turned out that Zhang Shuiao had gotten a little tired from reading in the living room, so she thought she would come to the study to see what Chen Hao was busy with. She tiptoed in and saw Chen Hao intently staring at the computer screen, his hands frantically typing on the keyboard at a speed she couldn't comprehend at all. That was beyond just fast. The 10 fingers seemed to transform into blurry afterimages, leaping and dancing on the keyboard, the dense tapping sounds blending together seamlessly, with almost no gaps. On the screen, the code window displayed text gushing upwards like a fountain, so fast it dazzled her. She was completely stunned by the sight and stood there for several minutes until Chen Hao stopped to stretch, at which point she couldn't help but exclaim in amazement. Chen Hao found her adorable and innocent expression incredibly cute. He stood up, turned around, and pulled her into his arms, nuzzling his chin against the top of her head as he chuckled and complained. You came in without saying a word, then suddenly spoke up behind me, startling me. You have to be punished. As he spoke, his right hand, equipped with a motor, had already slipped unruly under Zhang Shuiao's pajamas and expertly climbed to her peak. He precisely grasped that soft mass, gently kneading it with his fingertips, feeling its amazing elasticity and fullness change shape in his palm. Hey! You pervert! Zhang Shuiao was startled by his sudden attack, instantly snapping out of her shock, her cheeks flushing red. She playfully tried to push his hand away, but he held her even tighter, and his mischievous hand showed no sign of stopping, instead intensifying its movements by changing shape. Who told you to peek at me while I was working and then scare me? Chen Hao chuckled softly in her ear, feeling the fullness and elasticity of his palm, and the gradual softening of the delicate body in his arms. The next morning, Chen Hao woke up before Zhang Shuiao. Morning light streamed softly into the bedroom through the gaps in the curtains. He turned to the side and looked at Zhang Shuiao in his arms. She was fast asleep, wearing only a loose, light-colored silk nightgown. Because of her sleeping position, the neckline was slightly open, and she wasn't wearing anything underneath. A patch of snow-white, delicate skin and that alluring, deep cleavage came into Chen Hao's view without warning, rising and falling slightly with her steady breathing. Zhang Shuiao's sleeping face was serene and beautiful. Her long eyelashes cast a small shadow under her eyes, and the corners of her mouth were slightly upturned, as if she was having a sweet dream. There was also a satisfied and happy smile on her face. Last night, although the two of them refrained from taking the final step due to her pregnancy, they still indulged in intimacy until quite late. She was clearly exhausted and slept very soundly. Seeing this breathtaking sight, Chen Hao felt a surge of warmth in his heart and couldn't help but reach out and gently slip his hand inside the open neckline of her nightgown. The familiar, amazingly soft touch came from my palm, full and elastic. He carefully and tenderly played with and kneaded it, savoring the unique beauty that belonged only to him. Perhaps she was truly exhausted. Zhang Shuiao only let out a soft moan unconsciously, slightly shifting her body and snuggling deeper into his arms. She didn't wake up, and the happy smile on her pretty face seemed even sweeter. Having thoroughly enjoyed his hands, Chen Hao's heart was filled with tenderness. He lowered his head and placed a gentle, precious kiss on her slightly pouting, alluring red lips before carefully withdrawing his hand, quietly getting up, getting dressed, and going to the bathroom to wash up. After washing up, he went downstairs into the kitchen, tied on an apron, and began preparing breakfast. Chapter 76. Let Go. It itches. Chen Hao decided to make a delicate Cantonese breakfast. His legendary culinary skills allow him to make these exquisite desserts with ease. He first made translucent shrimp dumplings, with paper-thin wrappers encasing whole, bouncy shrimp and a few pieces of bamboo shoots, pinching out beautiful pleats. I also made the classic honey-glazed char siu buns. The risen dough was soft and white, filled with homemade char siu filling that was just the right amount of sweet and savory. After steaming, the top naturally cracked open, revealing the glossy, dark brown filling inside, which smelled delicious. There's also rice noodle rolls. Rice batter is poured evenly onto a special steamer cloth, sprinkled with fresh minced beef and chopped green onions, steamed, rolled up, and drizzled with a special soy sauce. They're smooth, tender, and delicious. Finally, I also cooked a small pot of congee with preserved egg and lean pork. The congee base was smooth and creamy, the pork shreds were tender and smooth, and the preserved egg had a rich aroma. Just as he was plating the last serving of rice noodle rolls, he heard familiar footsteps and smelled the delicate fragrance behind him. A pair of arms wrapped around his waist from behind, and then two soft and elastic mounds pressed against his back. What are you doing? It smells so good. Zhang Shuiyao pressed her face against his back, her voice soft and languid from just waking up, clearly not fully awake yet. Chen Hao put down what he was holding, turned around, pulled her into his arms, and kissed her on the forehead. Awake? I made your favorite Cantonese breakfast today: shrimp dumplings, char siu buns, rice noodle rolls, and congee with preserved egg and lean pork. I guarantee you'll love it. Really? Zhang Shuiyao's eyes lit up immediately, most of her sleepiness disappeared, and an expectant smile appeared on her face. I can already smell the aroma of char siu bao. It's all ready. Go wash up and get ready to eat. Chen Hao patted her on the back. Okay. Zhang Shuiyao nodded vigorously, then turned and ran to wash up. Soon, the two of them carried the steaming hot and fragrant breakfast to the restaurant table. Zhang Shuiyao looked at the exquisite and beautiful pastries on the table and couldn't help but feel tempted. The two sat down and resumed their familiar routine of feeding each other. Chen Hao picked up a shrimp dumpling, blew on it, and brought it to Zhang Shuiyao's lips. Zhang Shuiyao opened her mouth to take it, and with a gentle bite, the thin but tough skin broke open, revealing a whole, bouncy, and delicious shrimp inside, mixed with the crispness of bamboo shoots. It tasted wonderful. It's so delicious. Zhang Shuiyao exclaimed indistinctly as she chewed, her eyes squinting happily. She also picked up a piece of rice noodle roll, carefully dipped it in soy sauce, and offered it to Chen Hao's mouth. Chen Hao smiled and ate it. The smooth rice noodle roll paired with the salty soy sauce tasted really good. Zhang Shuiyao then tried the char siu bao. The soft dough wrapped around the sweet and savory, juicy char siu filling, making it impossible for her to stop eating. The congee with preserved egg and lean pork was cooked to perfection, warming and comforting to the stomach. Honey, your cooking skills are really getting better and better. Zhang Shuiyao finished a char siu bao, leaned back in her chair with satisfaction, and looked at Chen Hao with eyes full of admiration and sweetness. I feel like you've spoiled my palate. What am I going to do when we eat out in the future? Chen Hao felt a great sense of accomplishment looking at her satisfied expression. He leaned closer, lowered his voice, and asked with a mischievous grin, is it just my cooking? Then, last night, wasn't your husband amazing? Zhang Shuiyao's face flushed bright red, like a ripe tomato. She lowered her head shyly, gave a barely audible and then muttered in an extremely soft voice, amazing, amazing. Ha? What did you say? I didn't hear you. Chen Hao deliberately tilted his ear, his smile widening. Zhang Shuiyao knew he was teasing her again, and looked up at him with embarrassment and annoyance, raising her voice slightly. Wow, that's impressive. Ha? What? The wind is too strong, I still didn't hear you. Chen Hao continued to play dumb. Zhang Shuiyao wouldn't have it this time. She jumped up, walked to Chen Hao's side, reached out her small hand, gently grabbed his ear, leaned close to his ear, and shouted with all her might. I said you're amazing. Now you heard me, you big bad guy. Ouch, I heard you, I heard you. Chen Hao cried out, laughing as she pulled his ear. My dear wife, have mercy. My ear is going to fall off. Humph. Let's see if you dare to tease me again. Zhang Shuiyao let go of her hand and raised her chin triumphantly. Dare to play a trick on me? See how I get back at you. Chen Hao said, suddenly reaching out and pulling Zhang Shuiao, who was standing next to him, towards him, causing her to gasp and fall onto his lap. He wrapped one arm tightly around her waist, while his other hand deftly slipped under the hem of her pajamas. His hands roamed over her smooth skin, sometimes gently tickling her sores, sometimes lingering on her sensitive areas. Ah! Ha ha! Stop! Stop it! Honey! I'm sorry. I'm sorry, okay? Let go. It tickles. Ha ha! Zhang Shuiya felt a tingling and itchy sensation all over her body from his touch. She squirmed and trembled in his arms, laughing so hard that tears almost came out, and begged for mercy repeatedly. The two laughed and joked for a while before gradually calming down. Zhang Shuiya leaned softly against Chen Hao's chest, breathing slightly heavily, her cheeks flushed, and her eyes filled with tears of laughter. Chen Hao stopped bullying her and simply held her gently, enjoying the warm morning. After they both calmed down and finished their breakfast. Remembering the important arrangements for today, Zhang Shuiao sat up straight from Chen Hao's lap and asked, "By the way, Chen Hao, are you taking your driving theory test today? What time is it scheduled?" Chen Hao nodded, "Yes, 10 a.m. Then I'll drive you there," Zhang Shuiao said naturally. "Okay." Chen Hao did not refuse. The two tidied up the dining table, changed their clothes, and left the villa together, getting into Zhang Shuiao's red sports car. The car drove smoothly toward the driving test center. On the way, Zhang Shuiao was still a little worried and asked as she drove, "Chen Hao, you really didn't review any more driving test questions last night? You just relied on what you looked at in class the day before yesterday? Really, there's no need to look anymore." Chen Hao sat in the passenger seat, looking at the street scene outside the window, his tone relaxed and confident. "Those questions are easy to remember at a glance. Looking at them again is a waste of time." Zhang Shuiao found his arrogant and ignorant attitude both amusing and exasperating. She herself had put in a lot of effort, and always felt that Chen Hao was being too presumptuous. But, there are quite a few questions in the theory test that are easy to confuse. If I fail, it will cause a lot of trouble. Are you really not going to take another look? There's still some time before we get to the exam hall. Chen Hao turned his head, looked at Zhang Shuiao's worried profile, reached out and ruffled her hair, a confident smile spreading across his face. "Don't worry, my dear wife. It's just the driving test. I guarantee you'll get a perfect score. When have I, your husband, ever let you down?" Looking at the undeniable confidence in his eyes, Zhang Shuiao still felt that he was a bit arrogant, but for some reason, she also felt that he really could do it. She pouted and said coquettishly, "Humph, all you do is brag. If you don't get a perfect score, just wait and see how I laugh at you. Then you probably won't have that chance." Chen Hao smiled and leaned back in his seat, closed his eyes, and began to mentally review the traffic regulations one last time, even though he felt it was completely unnecessary. Chapter 77, Subject 1, completed in 7 minutes. The car quickly arrived at the driving test center. Because it was the weekend, quite a few people had gathered at the center's entrance, and in the open space most were young people, but there were also a few middle-aged people. They stood or sat in small groups, each with a different expression. Some were nervously flipping through their phone's question bank, while others were chatting and laughing with their companions, creating an atmosphere that was a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. Zhang Shuiao found an empty spot and parked her car. As soon as they got out of the car, Zhang Shuiao naturally reached out and took Chen Hao's arm, leaning her entire upper body against him, her soft and elastic breasts pressed tightly against his arm. She wore a light-colored knit sweater today, which accentuated her beautiful curves. Combined with her exquisitely beautiful face, she instantly became the most eye-catching focus of the entire room. Almost everyone present turned their attention to this. The men stared intently, their eyes glued to Zhang Shuiao. The women, on the other hand, made no attempt to hide their envy and jealousy. When they saw Zhang Shuiao intimately linking arms with Chen Hao, her face beaming with a dependent and sweet smile, the men felt a surge of intense jealousy and resentment. Who is this kid? How lucky they are. His girlfriend is so beautiful, and she even drove him to the exam. Chen Hao was already used to being watched when he was with Zhang Shuiao. He remained calm and let Zhang Shuiao take his arm as they walked towards the waiting area where the crowd was gathered. As they approached the crowd, a young man in a blue t-shirt, who looked to be in his late 20s and seemed to have an outgoing personality, walked towards them. He first glanced quickly at Zhang Shuiao, then looked at Chen Hao and smiled as he struck up a conversation. "Hey buddy, you're here to take your driving test too, right? I just saw you get out of the passenger seat. He pointed at Zhang Shuiyao, making it clear that the beautiful woman was the driver. Chen Hao nodded. Yes, it's the theory test subject 1. The man in blue glanced again at Zhang Shuiyao, who was standing next to Chen Hao and had a stunning appearance, his eyes filled with envy, and he clicked his tongue in disapproval. Is this your girlfriend? Dude, you're so lucky. Your girlfriend is so beautiful, and she even drove you here for your exam. I'm so envious. His tone was exaggerated, but there was no malice in it, it was purely an exclamation. Chen Hao smiled but didn't respond to the question. The man in blue, acting as if they were old friends, asked again, Hey buddy, how's your practice for the driving test going? Feeling confident? Chen Hao casually replied, It's alright, it should be fine. Not bad? That won't do, you need to have confidence. The man in blue seemed very confident in himself, patting his chest and saying with a hint of smugness. I think the theory test is too easy. I practiced for 3 days and I feel like I could pass it with my eyes closed. During the exam later, I'll definitely be the first to hand in my paper, and I'll absolutely get a perfect score. As he spoke, he glanced at Chen Hao, seemingly trying to see a hint of defeat on his face. Chen Hao just smiled and didn't say anything. He couldn't be bothered to participate in such meaningless comparisons. Zhang Shuiyao listened from the side, secretly amused. Her boyfriend was a madman who dared to take the exam after only 1 class period of study, but she didn't expose Chen Hao's bluff, she just quietly took his arm. Before long, the exam time was approaching. Staff began organizing the candidates to line up and prepare to enter the examination room. Chen Hao said to Zhang Shuiyao, I'm going in. Wait for me outside for a while. Zhang Shuiyao nodded, let go of his hand, and clenched her little fist to cheer him on. Yes. Good luck. You can definitely pass. Her voice was soft and sweet, and her eyes were full of trust. Wait for my good news. Chen Hao squeezed her hand, then turned and followed the crowd toward the entrance of the examination hall. The man in blue quickly followed, deliberately walking a little ahead of Chen Hao, seemingly wanting to be the first to go. Upon entering the examination area, first gather in the waiting area. A stern-faced examiner, holding a megaphone, loudly announced the examination rules and precautions: no whispering, no cell phones or other electronic devices, no cheating. After the lecture, the exam time was up, and the candidates began to line up and put on the special reflective vests with their numbers printed on the back. After passing through the security gate and confirming that no prohibited items are being carried, you can enter the actual examination room. Chen Hao put on his vest according to procedure, went through security, and found his seat. The examination room was filled with rows of computers, and the screens were touch-sensitive. He sat down, entered his ID number as prompted on the screen, verified the information, and then clicked to start the exam. The questions are displayed page by page on the screen. For Chen Hao, who possesses epic driving skills and has long since internalized traffic safety knowledge, these questions are simpler than elementary school arithmetic problems. He didn't even need to think. The moment his eyes swept over the question and the options, the correct answer already appeared in his mind. His fingers tapped quickly and steadily on the touchscreen. Choose, next question, choose, next question. He's clicking so fast that if someone nearby saw him, they'd probably think he was just randomly clicking. After answering each question, a green checkmark would flash briefly in the corner of the screen when clicking on the next question, indicating that the answer was correct, but he couldn't even be bothered to look at it. Time passed by, and the examination room was quiet, with only the slight sound of clicking on the screen and the occasional gasp or sigh from the examinees. Most people were deep in thought, occasionally frowning. Meanwhile, on Chen Hao's side, the question numbers on the screen were jumping around rapidly. He answered 100 questions almost without pausing. Finally, I finished answering the last question about driving in bad weather. The screen immediately changed, displaying a large 100 points, followed by the specific time taken to answer the questions, 7 minutes and 1 second. Chen Hao calmly stood up, straightened his clothes, and walked towards the table at the front of the examination room where invigilators and register candidates were responsible. His action seemed particularly abrupt in the quiet, intense examination room. Instantly, almost all the candidates in the examination room, as well as the examiners on the stage and those patrolling the room, all turned their attention to him. What happened? Did he finish the exam? It's only been a few minutes? 10 minutes? It must have been made haphazardly, right? Did they give up because they couldn't keep going? Maybe the questions were too difficult, and you failed. Are you going to retake the exam? That's not right. If you fail once, you can go back and take the test again. Why did he just walk straight onto the stage? Chapter 78. Zhang Shuiao is stunned, a perfect score in 7 minutes? Whispers rose among the test takers, their faces filled with surprise and disbelief. The exam has only just started. The blue-clad man sitting not far from Chen Hao stared wide-eyed, looking as if he had seen a ghost. He had just secretly vowed to be the first to hand in his paper, but after only completing less than 30 questions, this guy he thought was okay had already gotten up? Under the questioning, surprised, and incredulous gazes of everyone, Chen Hao walked straight to the invigilator's desk. A middle-aged female examiner looked at him with suspicion. "You." "Examiner, I've finished the exam." "Come and sign here," Chen Hao said calmly. "The exam's over?" The female examiner glanced at the time on the computer screen, then at Chen Hao, clearly not quite believing it either. "Are you sure?" 100 points. Chen Hao pointed to the electronic signature device next to him. "Can I sign now?" The female examiner, with some skepticism, pulled up Chen Hao's exam records on her computer. When the screen clearly displayed score, 100 points, time taken, 7 minutes and 1 second, her eyes widened instantly, her mouth opened slightly, and she was stunned for a full 2 seconds. A perfect score? 7 minutes, she couldn't help but exclaim in a low voice, her voice filled with shock. Her exclamation was heard by several sharp-eared examinees nearby, causing an even bigger commotion. "What? A perfect score? 7 minutes? Holy crap! How is that possible? Did he memorize the entire question bank? A monster." The man in blue wasn't too far away and vaguely heard the words perfect score and 7 minutes. His smugness and confidence froze instantly, then turned into utter astonishment. He was completely dumbfounded. He had previously boasted that he would be the first to get a perfect score, but he actually got a perfect score in less than a tenth of the time and was the first to come out. That's a resounding slap in the face. Chen Hao remained oblivious to the commotion around him and the countless astonished, admiring, and incredulous gazes. He skillfully signed his name on the electronic signature board, then nodded to the female examiner who was still not fully recovered from her shock. "Thank you, examiner." After speaking, he took off his exam vest and put it back in the designated place. He turned around and walked out of the examination room with ease, under the watchful eyes of everyone present. As Chen Hao walked out of the examination building, he immediately saw Zhang Shuiao standing under the shade of a tree not far from the entrance, looking down at her phone and occasionally glancing up at the examination exit, clearly waiting for him. Zhang Shuiao was visibly taken aback when she saw Chen Hao come out. She quickly glanced at the time on her phone again. Only 7 or 8 minutes had passed since the start of the exam. "You're out so quickly?" A thought immediately popped into my head. Could it be that he failed the exam, the questions were too difficult, or he wasn't prepared and couldn't finish, so he handed in his paper early? She carefully observed Chen Hao as he approached, noticing that his face didn't show any particular happiness, and even seemed to carry a hint of, well, like the expression of someone who hadn't done well on a test. Now Zhang Shuiao was even more certain of her guess. She had originally planned that when Chen Hao came out, if he passed the exam, she would make fun of him, since he had been so confident that he would get a perfect score. But at this moment, seeing Chen Hao's loser appearance as she perceived him, her playful intentions immediately vanished, replaced by deep heartache and comfort. She quickly put away her phone, hurried over, and grabbed Chen Hao's arm tightly, her soft, firm breasts pressed against his arm. She tilted her little face up, her voice soft and gentle, carrying a cautious attempt at comfort. "Chen Hao, did you not do well on the test because the questions were a bit difficult?" She observed Chen Hao's expression, and seeing that he didn't speak, Chen Hao was suppressing a laugh. She continued speaking to herself, her tone so gentle it could melt hearts. "It's okay, really. It's normal to fail the first time. Many people have to take it twice. Next time we'll prepare well and go through the question bank a few more times, we'll definitely pass. Don't be discouraged." As she spoke, she gently shook Chen Hao's arm, as if coaxing a child. Looking at her adorable expression, so earnestly comforting him and afraid he might be hurt, Chen Hao finally couldn't hold back anymore. He burst out laughing, his feigned composure instantly crumbling, replaced by a familiar, slightly mischievous smile. "Hey Zhang Shuiao," Chen Hao turned his head, looking at her with amusement. "You have so little faith in your husband?" Zhang Shuiao was taken aback by his sudden smile and question. She blinked her big eyes and frowned slightly. What do you mean?" Chen Hao reached out and pinched her smooth cheek, and smiled. "What do you mean? You mean that your husband is so smart, how could he not even pass the first part of the driving test? And next time? Once is enough, there's no need for a second time." Zhang Shuiyao didn't react at first, staring blankly at him. After a few seconds, her eyes slowly widened, and an incredulous surprise gradually appeared on her face. You mean, you passed the exam? Of course I passed, Chen Hao nodded, his tone relaxed. And it's a perfect score. 100 points. Really? Zhang Shuiyao still couldn't believe it. After all, the time had been too short. You're kidding me, right? It's only been a few minutes. Quick, show me the results. She couldn't wait to reach into Chen Hao's pocket and grab his phone. Don't rush, don't rush. Chen Hao smiled and held down her wandering hand. He took out his phone, unlocked it, opened the pre-downloaded Traffic Management 12123 app, logged in, and found the exam information query. The screen clearly displays. Subject 1, 100 points. Wow! It really is 100 points. Zhang Shuiyao leaned close to her phone screen, and after seeing it clearly, she couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, her face filled with shock and joy. You actually got a perfect score. Wow! Chen Hao, you're amazing. Suddenly remembering something, she asked again, so how long did it take you to finish? Chen Hao exited the results page and glanced at the detailed exam record. 7 minutes and 1 second. 7 minutes and 1 second? Zhang Shuiyao's voice rose another notch, attracting the attention of several other test takers waiting nearby. She quickly covered her mouth, but the shock in her eyes remained undiminished. When I took the theory test, I spent 4 or 5 days practicing questions and even checked my answers during the exam. It still took me more than 18 minutes to get 100 points. You only spent a whole class period looking at the questions, and only took 7 minutes on the exam? And you got a perfect score? This efficiency and accuracy are simply unbelievable. Chapter 79 Strike While the Iron is Hot, Study Driving Test Part 2. Zhang Shuiyao initially thought Chen Hao was a bit blindly confident, but now she realized that it wasn't confidence, it was absolute overwhelming strength. My previous worries were completely unnecessary. Zhang Shuiyao was instantly overwhelmed with immense surprise and admiration. She couldn't help but hug Chen Hao's arm tightly again, almost hanging on him, tilting her little face up to look at him with bright eyes, praising him without reservation. Honey, you're amazing. I'm completely convinced. How can you be so incredible? Chen Hao was in a great mood, enjoying his girlfriend's adoration and dependence. He lowered his head, leaned close to her ear, and asked with a smile and a voice only the two of them could hear. Since your husband is so good at passing the written test, shouldn't he get a reward? Upon hearing the word reward, Zhang Shuiyao's face flushed red again. She certainly knew what reward Chen Hao was referring to. She glanced guiltily at the bustling driving test center around her, then lightly punched Chen Hao, lowering her voice with a mix of shyness and coquettishness. You're here again. There are so many people here, let's wait until we get back, we'll talk about it when we get back. You said it yourself, Chen Hao's eyes lit up, and he smiled as he squeezed her hand. Go back and you'll get a reward. No going back on your word. Okay. Zhang Shuiyao replied softly, blushing, and rested her head on his shoulder. Just then, a deliberate cough came from the side. The two turned their heads and saw the blue-clad man who had spoken to them at the door earlier walking out of the examination hall with a slightly embarrassed smile on his face, heading towards them. He clearly saw Zhang Shuiyao affectionately hugging Chen Hao's arm, and a hint of envy flashed quickly in his eyes, but more than that, he admired Chen Hao's achievements. Dude! The man in blue walked up to Chen Hao, gave him a thumbs up, and said sincerely. Amazing! Absolutely incredible! I was completely stunned sitting inside. 7 minutes, a perfect score. How did you do that? Did you know the entire question bank by heart? Chen Hao smiled and casually asked, how did you do on the exam? Hey, don't even mention it. The man in blue scratched his head, a little embarrassed. I'm nowhere near as good as you. I misread a few questions and accidentally clicked the wrong button, but I still got 90 points, which was just enough to pass. As long as you pass. Congratulations, buddy, your speed is absolutely legendary in this exam room. Congratulations on passing as well, Chen Hao replied politely. Thank you, thank you. The man in blue waved his hand, then couldn't help glancing at Zhang Shuiyao nestled beside Chen Hao. He thought to himself once again how this guy was a true winner in life, and then tactfully said. You guys get back to your work, I'll be going now. Goodbye. Goodbye. Chen Hao nodded. The man in blue turned and left, but couldn't help looking back after walking a distance. Under the sunlight, the handsome man and beautiful woman stood together. The girl affectionately linked arms with the boy, who leaned down and spoke gently to her, while a sweet smile appeared on the girl's face. The car is a luxury car, the girlfriend is as beautiful as an angel, and the boy is also extremely intelligent. It's truly enviable and makes one both jealous and impressed. Chen Hao and Zhang Shuiyao didn't linger and walked together towards the parking lot. Once in the car, Zhang Shuiyao was still immersed in the joy of Chen Hao easily passing the exam with a perfect score and in amazement at his abilities. As he started the car, he couldn't help but mutter, "Chen Hao, how is your brain made? How can you be so smart?" Chen Hao just smiled, leaning back in his comfortable chair, pondering his next steps and his reward when he got home. After driving out of the driving test center, Zhang Shuiyao turned to Chen Hao and asked, "Are we going home now?" "No," Chen Hao shook his head and looked ahead, to the driving school. "Going to driving school now?" Zhang Shuiyao was a little surprised. "You just finished your theory test, don't you need to rest or celebrate a bit?" Chen Hao smiled and said naturally, "What's there to celebrate? It's not a big deal. Now that you've passed the first subject, get back to studying the rest. Take the driving test, both the second and third parts, as soon as possible and get your driver's license. That way, you won't have to drive all the time. I'll drive, and you can just sit and rest." Zhang Shuiyao felt a warmth in her heart. It turned out that the main reason he was in such a hurry to learn to drive was for her sake, so that she wouldn't be too tired. She looked at Chen Hao with gratitude, then turned the steering wheel and said, "Okay, let's go straight to the driving school. Anyway, I don't have anything else to do today, I'll go with you." The car quickly arrived at Changda Driving School. Driving schools are busier on weekends than on weekdays. There are many training vehicles parked on the training ground, students practicing in various training areas, and many people waiting in line. Zhang Shuiyao parked the car, and the two got out. She naturally linked her arm with Chen Hao's again, leaning her weight slightly against him, her soft breasts pressed tightly against his arm without reservation. The two walked side by side toward the driving practice area. Zhang Shuiyao's appearance was like a pebble thrown into a calm lake, instantly creating ripples in the noisy driving practice area. Almost the instant she stepped into the training ground's field of vision, all the students who were waiting to practice driving or resting and chatting on the side, especially the male students, were immediately drawn to her. There's no way around it, Zhang Shuiya's looks and temperament are simply too outstanding, making her the center of attention wherever she stands. Today she was only wearing simple casual clothes, but her face and figure were even more eye-catching than those carefully dressed female celebrities on TV. My God, who is this beautiful woman? She's so gorgeous. Which instructor brought in a new student? No way, someone who looks like that to learn to drive? Look at the guy next to her, is that her boyfriend? Damn, that guy's got amazing luck. Tisk, I'm so envious. If I had a girlfriend that pretty, I'd do the reverse parking 100 times. Quiet murmurs and gasps of surprise spread through the crowd. The male trainees stared wide-eyed, their gazes following Zhang Shuiyao's every move, unable to look away. When they saw Zhang Shuiyao intimately linking arms with Chen Hao, her entire upper body almost pressed against him, their envy and jealousy reached their peak. Even more outrageous, several male trainees who were practicing in the car, who were originally focused on watching the reference points and turning the steering wheel. He caught a glimpse of Zhang Shuiyao out of the corner of his eye, and his soul almost left his body. His hands went completely awry, and his eyes were fixed on her, ignoring the road ahead. Hey! What are you looking at? Look ahead! Steering wheel. Straighten it. Straighten it. One of the instructors shouted anxiously from the passenger seat. Chapter 80. Slam on the brakes. Slam on the brakes. Ha! Oh! The student suddenly snapped out of his daze and frantically tried to steer, but he steered too far, and the car veered off course and nearly crashed into a low wall. Step on the brakes. Brakes. The coach was terrified and yelled as he quickly reached out to step on the brake in the passenger seat. Gah! The car suddenly stopped, barely coming to a halt less than half a meter from the low wall. People inside and outside the car were terrified. The instructor, enraged, yelled, "Where are your eyes? Where are you looking when you're practicing driving? Are you out of your mind? If you keep this up, you're out of here." The student was so embarrassed by the scolding that he lowered his head and didn't dare to say a word, but his eyes couldn't help but sneak glances at Zhang Shuiyao. Even the coach, who was yelling at the students, after finishing reprimanding them, glanced in the direction the students were peeking. When he saw Zhang Shuiao, he couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, and he sighed inwardly, my god, this girl is absolutely stunning. Feeling the intense gazes directed at her from all directions, Zhang Shuiao felt a little embarrassed and subconsciously moved closer to Chen Hao. However, she was already used to being watched wherever she went, and quickly adjusted herself, linking arms with Chen Hao, her eyes searching for Coach Jiang Lei's figure on the field. They quickly found the area that Coach Jiang Lei was in charge of. Coach Jiang is around 30 years old, with short hair, and looks neat and efficient. She is currently standing outside a training vehicle. He was speaking to a girl in her early 20s who looked pretty but seemed flustered, his tone tinged with obvious helplessness. Long Yajing. How many times have I told you? Keep your eyes glued to the left rearview mirror. Turn the car around half a turn when the rear of the car is 30 centimeters away from the corner of the parking space. You're always turning the steering wheel too early or too late. What's wrong with it? Go easy on me. Don't wrestle like you're arm wrestling. Jiang Lei patted the car door, looking utterly disappointed. The girl named Long Yajing in the car was almost in tears after what she was told. She hurriedly shifted gears again, ready to try again. At this moment, Jiang Lei looked up and saw Chen Hao and Zhang Shuiao walking over. She was taken aback for a moment, then recognized Zhang Shuiao, and a smile appeared on her face. Hey! Shuiao! What brings you here? Did you bring a friend to register? She assumed Zhang Shuiao was there to introduce a new student. Hello, Coach Jiang. Zhang Shuiao greeted sweetly, letting go of Chen Hao's arm, but still standing very close to him. It's not registration, it's driving practice. This is my boyfriend, Chen Hao. Sister Lu should have told you before that you would be in charge of teaching him. Oh. Right. Chen Hao, right? Sister Lu told me about him. Shuiao recommended him, so he can't be wrong. Jiang Lei then turned her gaze to Chen Hao, sizing up the tall, handsome young man. His attitude was very friendly. You passed your written driving test? You're here to practice driving so soon? Chen Hao nodded, I just took the exam. Zhang Shuiao, standing to the side with undisguised pride, interjected. Coach Jiang, Chen Hao not only passed his theory test, but he got a perfect score. And he finished the test in just 7 minutes and 1 second. Her voice wasn't too loud or too soft, but several students who were waiting to practice or had just finished and gotten out of the car nearby heard her, and even Long Yajing in the car looked over at the same time. 7 minutes and 1 second? Full marks? Everyone present was stunned, their faces showing disbelief. Getting a perfect score on the written test is not uncommon, but getting a perfect score after finishing in 7 minutes? That speed is just too outrageous. Are you just bragging? Jiang Lei was also taken aback for a moment, then laughed and said, Really? That's impressive. But Shuiao, did you see the exam time with your own eyes? Zhang Shuiao was speechless. She hadn't entered the examination room and hadn't seen the timer with her own eyes. But Chen Hao has a score on the traffic management app on his phone. 100 points. After saying that, she took out her phone, quickly found a screenshot she had taken when Chen Hao showed her the grades, and showed it to everyone. Look! 100 points. I didn't lie. Everyone crowded around to take a look, and the screen did indeed display the words Subject 1, 100 points. A male student waiting to practice driving couldn't help but chime in, his tone somewhat skeptical. Hey beautiful, grades are grades, and time is time. The app doesn't show how long it took to get the results. A perfect score is impressive, but 7 minutes, are you sure you didn't misremember? It might have taken 17 minutes, or even 27 minutes? Exactly, another student chimed in. Even though I had practiced the problems so many times that I knew them by heart, it still took me almost 20 minutes to finish checking them. 7 minutes. I doubt they even finished answering the questions. Long Yajing also leaned out of the car, looking on curiously. Yes, it's a perfect score, impressive. Jiang Lei nodded, but her tone clearly still held reservations about the 7 minutes figure. But the time, maybe Shuiao misheard, or Chen Hao is just joking with you. She turned to Chen Hao and said with a smile, It's alright, young man, a perfect score is already great. Come on, let me take a look at your basic information and arrange for you to get in the car. The other trainees nodded in agreement, thinking that Zhang Shuiao must have been too protective of her boyfriend and had either misheard or exaggerated the time. 7 minutes? That's absolutely impossible. Zhang Shuiao wanted to argue, but her face turned red with urgency. Chen Hao gently tugged at her hand, shook his head at her, and indicated that it wasn't necessary. With a nonchalant smile on his face, he said to Jiang Lei, "Thank you, Coach Jiang. Time isn't important, as long as we pass. Shall we begin now?" He doesn't care whether others believe in those 7 minutes or not. Facts are facts, there's no need to waste words trying to prove anything. The important thing is to get your driving license and learn to drive as soon as possible. Although Jiang Lei was skeptical of Chen Hao's claim of a perfect score in 7 minutes, seeing his calm demeanor and the fact that Zhang Shuiao had strongly recommended him, she put aside her doubts and prepared to begin teaching. "Xiao Chen, is this your first time driving? Let's start with the basics." Jiang Lei led Chen Hao to a training car and pointed to the driver's seat. "Get in the car first, adjust the seat and rearview mirrors, and fasten your seatbelt. This is the first step in learning to drive and the foundation of safe driving." Chen Hao nodded, opened the car door, and got in. With his epic driving skills, he is intimately familiar with everything inside the car. His movements as he adjusts the seat and rearview mirrors are natural and standard, even more skillful and precise than some veteran drivers. However, he still followed the beginner's procedure and pretended it was his first time doing this. Jiang Lei watched from the side, nodding slightly in her heart. The movements are quite steady, not rash, a good prospect. "Okay, now let's learn the basic operations." Jiang Lei pointed to the steering wheel, gear lever, handbrake, clutch, brake, and accelerator. "Let's start by understanding them and how to operate them correctly. Especially the clutch, the soul of a manual transmission." Chapter 81. This guy's first time touching a car? Are you kidding me? Jiang Lei began to explain in detail the name and function of each component, as well as the key points and taboos of operation, such as how to start smoothly with half clutch, how to shift gears, how to observe, and so on. These things were as simple to Chen Hao as a college student listening to nursery rhymes in kindergarten, but he still pretended to listen attentively. After explaining, Jiang Lei said, "Talking without doing is useless. Okay, now start the car and try the most basic thing, a smooth start. Drive in a straight line for a short distance, and then stop." Following the steps she had just described, Chen Hao depressed the clutch, shifted into first gear, released the handbrake, gently released the clutch to find the engagement point, and slowly applied the accelerator. The car started very smoothly, without any jerking or stalling, and then steadily moved forward for more than 10 meters along the straight line drawn on the track. Finally, I pressed the clutch and brake, brought the car to a smooth stop, and pulled the handbrake. The whole process was done in one smooth motion, as if I were a novice. Jiang Lei stood outside the car window, stunned for a moment. This is way too safe, isn't it? Of all the students she has taught, probably only 1 in 10 can start so smoothly and drive in a straight line on their first time in a car. Most of the time, the engine stalls, the car lurches forward, or the steering wheel shakes erratically. But the Chen Hao in front of me looks like a seasoned driver who has been driving for years. "Coach, is that so?" Chen Hao turned his head and looked at her with a look of inquiry. Yes. Well done." Jiang Lei snapped out of her daze, suppressing her surprise. "Very standard. It seems you have strong comprehension and practical skills. Let's increase the difficulty a bit and try accelerating and decelerating in a straight line." She demonstrated the technique of shifting from first gear to second gear and then shifting back to first gear. Chen Hao only watched it once. When he operated it again, the timing of the gear shift was precise, and the coordination between the clutch and the accelerator was seamless. The whole process was extremely smooth without any sense of jerking. This time, not only was Jiang Lei surprised, but Zhang Shuiao, who had been standing by watching, Long Yajing, who had just been scolded and got out of the car to get some fresh air, and several other students who had noticed the commotion nearby were all dumbfounded. "Holy crap, this guy's first time driving a car? Are you kidding me? That start, that gear shifting, it's smoother than mine. I've been practicing for a week. Did he know how to drive before and was just deliberately trying to make fun of the instructor? That's impossible. Who would dare to drive without a license? And look at how attentively he's listening to the explanation." Zhang Shuiao's eyes sparkled, and she had a proud expression that said, "Look how amazing my husband is." She knew a Chen Hao learned everything very quickly. Jiang Lei's surprise had turned into astonishment and doubt. She has been teaching driving for many years and has seen many talented students, but she has never heard of anyone as talented as this. She couldn't help but ask, "Xiao Chen, have you ever touched a car before? Or played with a driving simulator or something?" Chen Hao replied calmly, "No, coach. Today is my first time touching the steering wheel. Maybe I just have a better feel for it? He can't exactly call himself an epic driving master, can he? Jiang Lei was skeptical, but Chen Hao's actions were indeed flawless, and his attitude was very serious, not like he was there to cause trouble. She thought for a moment and decided to increase the difficulty. Then, let's start practicing the second part of the driving test directly. Start with reversing into a parking space. This is the most demanding test of basic skills. The surrounding students were even more in an uproar upon hearing this. Reversing into a parking space? They've only learned the basic operations for less than 10 minutes, and now they're jumping straight into the most difficult project? Most students need to practice the basics for at least 1 or 2 days to get a feel for the car before they can start reversing into a parking space. Is Coach Jiang trying to test his limits? This is ridiculous. I've been practicing reversing into a parking space for 4 days, and I still often cross the line. Long Yajing shrank her neck even more, as she was terrible at the reverse parking exercise. Jiang Lei ignored the surrounding discussions. She was also a little defiant and wanted to see if Chen Hao was really that amazing. She led Chen Hao to the parking space and began to explain in detail the reference points, how to use the rearview mirror, how much to turn the steering wheel, and when to straighten it. She explained every detail very clearly. After listening, Chen Hao nodded. Understood, coach. Okay, you can try it once. Don't be nervous, take your time, and pay attention to the points. Jiang Lei sat back in the passenger seat, fastened her seatbelt, but she wasn't really sure about what to expect. Chen Hao started the car, following the procedure she had just explained, shifting into reverse, checking the left rearview mirror, controlling the speed. His movements were not fast, but exceptionally steady and precise. The rear of the car was precisely reversed into the parking space, with almost perfect left and right distances. The car body was straight, and then it came to a steady stop in the designated position inside the parking space. Perfectly installed. Jiang Lei opened her mouth, but couldn't say anything. She looked in the rearview mirror, then at the parking lines, and could hardly believe her eyes. One success? And it's so standard? Coach, is that so? Chen Hao asked again. Yes, very standard. Jiang Lei's voice was a little dry. However, it might just be luck. Try again to solidify your skills. Chen Hao followed instructions, drove the car out of the parking space, adjusted its position, and started reversing again. This time, his movements were even smoother than before, without the slightest hesitation. The car seemed to be remotely controlled, and once again, it reversed steadily into the parking space with a textbook perfect posture, even more precise than the first time. Jiang Lei was completely speechless. Once is luck, but twice? And it gets better each time? Coach, do we need to do it again? Chen Hao asked. You pour it in again. Pour it in from the right. Jiang Lei refused to believe it. Chen Hao showed no impatience, drove the car to the starting position on the right, and began reversing into the parking space. Similarly, it was a perfect success on the first try. The surroundings were completely silent. All the trainees who witnessed this scene, including Zhang Shuiao and Long Yajing, were frozen in place, staring blankly at the training car that was steadily parked in the middle of the parking space, and the calm-looking young man inside. Jiang Lei took several deep breaths before she could barely calm the turmoil in her heart. She looked at Chen Hao as if he were a monster. Xiao Chen, you have such a talent for learning to drive. I've been teaching driving for so many years, and this is truly the first time I've ever seen anything like it. You're amazing. Chen Hao smiled modestly. It's because you taught so well, coach, and explained things so clearly. No, please don't say that. Jiang Lei quickly waved her hand. She dared not take credit for it now. This is absolutely your own talent. No matter how well I teach, I could never teach a complete beginner to reverse parking like this in just a few minutes. It's simply amazing. Zhang Shuiao had already run over and was pressed against Chen Hao's car window, her eyes shining brightly. Chen Hao. You're amazing. I knew you were the best. She was even more excited than Chen Hao himself. Chapter 82 Comparison is the thief of joy. Long Yajing and the other students also gathered around, their eyes filled with envy and disbelief as they looked at Chen Hao. The things they practiced to the point of exhaustion, others finished in minutes, and so perfectly. The difference is just too disheartening. Coach, what about other sports? Can I learn them now? Chen Hao asked. He didn't want to waste time. Jiang Lei no longer had any doubts about Chen Hao's talent. All that remained was intense curiosity, a desire to see just how far he could go. Okay. I'll take you to other project sites. Let's go. She had Chen Hao drive, who drove even more steadily than she did, and took Zhang Shuiao and a group of curious students who had followed along. We arrived at the training ground for other driving test items, such as parallel parking, right angle turns, curved driving S-curve, hill start, and other driving skills. What happened next completely numbed everyone present. Jiang Lei explained the parallel parking technique once, and Chen Hao succeeded on his first try, achieving perfect distance. A right angle turn, done in one go. The tires seemed to have calculated it perfectly, grazing the inner corner line as they passed. Driving along the curves, the speed was stable, the steering wheel turned smoothly, and the car body always remained in the center of the lane, like a swimming fish. The vehicle can stop and start precisely on the slope with a smooth start, without any rolling back or stalling. For each project, Chen Hao only needs to learn it once to achieve near perfection. Finally, Jiang Lei asked Chen Hao to connect all the items and run through the entire simulated exam route. Chen Hao nodded and started the car. Starting from the starting point, the maneuvers include parallel parking, right angle turns, curved driving, reversing into a parking space once to the left and once to the right, and hill start. The entire process was smooth and seamless, without any pauses or mistakes. Every movement was precise and accurate, as if it had been practiced hundreds of times. When the car came to a smooth stop at the finish line, the person timing the test subconsciously glanced at the time. It was much shorter than the allotted time for the test. The entire room fell silent. Then, an uncontrollable gasp of amazement erupted. My goodness, is this really my first day of driving lessons? Is he a robot? How can he do that? I've been practicing for half a month, and I still can't do it this smoothly. Comparing yourself to others is just asking for trouble. Long Yajing was completely dumbfounded, with only one thought in her mind: so there really are geniuses in this world. Jiang Lei looked at Chen Hao getting out of the car. Her feelings were extremely complicated. She was shocked, admired, and also felt a sense of frustration that she had never experienced in her many years of teaching, because there was absolutely no room for her to perform. She walked up to Chen Hao and patted his shoulder hard. It felt like patting a steel plate. Xiao Chen, I'm impressed. I'm really impressed. With your talent, getting your driver's license is just a formality. I don't think you need to practice much at all, just book the test. You'll definitely pass on your first try. Chen Hao remained humble. Thank you, coach. It's mainly because of your excellent guidance. Well, shall I stop here for today? All right. Go back now. I'll talk to Sister Lu and arrange an exam for you as soon as possible. Jiang Lei is now hoping that this monster student will hurry up and take the exam, so that he won't dampen the confidence of the other students. Chen Hao thanked Jiang Lei, then walked towards Zhang Shuiao, who had been staring at him expectantly. Zhang Shuiao immediately pounced on him like a little bird, tightly holding his arm, her face filled with the pride of "My husband is the best in the world." Under the complex gazes of the crowd, the two left the driving range. Long Yajing and the other students watched Chen Hao's departing figure, their hearts filled with mixed emotions. Envy, jealousy, admiration, and deep self-doubt. What is that thing made of? A student muttered to himself. Maybe this is what they call a genius. Another student smiled wryly. If I had even a tenth of his talent, I wouldn't need to come here to sunbathe every day. Jiang Lei stood there, watching Chen Hao and Zhang Shuiao disappear in the direction of the driving school gate, shook her head, sighed, and then couldn't help but laugh. This experience is something she can brag about to other coaches for years to come. Chen Hao and Zhang Shuiao got into the car together. As soon as they closed the door and settled in, a familiar system notification sounded in Chen Hao's mind. Ding! Host detected engaging in driving-related learning and practice. Subject to practice. Congratulations! You have accumulated 227 driving experience points. Ding! Triggered a 10,000x return effect. You have received a critical experience return of 3,999 times. Refund calculation: 227 points 3,999 times equals 907,773 experience points. Current driving skill level: epic 2,187,888 10 million. Another wave of experience points gained. Chen Hao was in a good mood. Although he was still far from leveling up, the feeling of steady improvement was great. Zhang Shuiao started the car and slowly drove out of the driving school. As she drove, she couldn't help but turn her head and look at Chen Hao in the passenger seat with bright, sparkling eyes, her voice filled with excitement and admiration. Chen Hao! You were absolutely amazing just now. My God! I was watching from the sidelines, and I simply couldn't believe it. You've only been driving for about 20 minutes, right? And you've already learned all the parts of the driving test? And you're doing better than those who practiced for half a month. She got more and more excited as she spoke. Did you secretly learn to drive before? Or do you have a car at home and have driven it privately? Chen Hao looked at her flushed cheeks with excitement and found her extremely cute, shaking his head with a smile. No, really. Today was indeed the first time I'd ever touched a steering wheel. Maybe I have a little talent for it? This is more than just a little talent. Zhang Xueo exclaimed exaggeratedly. This is simply extraordinary talent. A super genius. Do you know how long it took me to practice for my driving test part 2? I went every day for almost 2 weeks, and my skin was so sunburned that it was almost peeling off, before I could barely master all the parts. And you finished in 20 minutes. And so perfectly. Coach John's eyes practically popped out of their sockets. She felt a surge of joy when she recalled the stunned expressions on Coach John's and the other trainees' faces, even more so than when she herself had passed the exam. Chen Hao was a little embarrassed by her praise, and reached out to ruffle her hair. All right, if you keep praising me, I'll get cocky. Drive carefully. That's true. Zhang Xueye gave a coquettish remark, but still obediently focused on watching the road, though she couldn't stop smiling. After a while, she remembered her business and said, By the way, you're so good, you probably won't need to practice much. In a few days, you can schedule your driving test part 2. You'll definitely pass on your first try. Chapter 83 Zhang Xueyao's Morning Sickness. Chen Hao nodded. Yes, you need to make an appointment. However, traffic regulations stipulate that after passing the theory test subject 1, you must wait at least 10 days before you can schedule the practical driving test subject 2. So I'll have to wait a few more days. If it weren't for this restriction, I'd book it right now. He really wanted to get his driver's license as soon as possible. 10 days is fine, it'll be quick, Zhang Xueyao comforted her. Anyway, you'll definitely be fine. The car quickly drove back to the villa area where they lived. After parking the car, the two went inside together. As soon as he entered, Chen Hao asked, Are you hungry? What do you want to eat for lunch? Zhang Xueyao touched her belly and nodded honestly. Yes, I've been hungry for a while. She doesn't usually eat much, but since becoming pregnant, she seems to get hungry more easily. Chen Hao reached out and gently touched her still flat stomach, smiling as he said, Now that it's just the two of us eating, of course you'll get hungry faster. Wait here, your husband will go and make you something delicious. Zhang Xueyao felt a sweet warmth in her heart and nodded happily. Chen Hao changed his clothes, tied on an apron, and went into the kitchen. Today he plans to cook several exquisite Huayan dishes. His legendary culinary skills allow him to master any cuisine with ease. He first prepared a stewed crab meat lion's head meatball. Select high-quality pork ribs with a good balance of fat and lean meat, and cut them by hand into small cubes the size of pomegranate seeds, instead of mincing them with a machine, so that they have a chewy texture. Add crab meat, crab roe, and chopped water chestnuts. Season with scallion and ginger water, cooking wine, salt, and a little sugar. Stir vigorously in one direction until the mixture becomes sticky. Then, place blanched bok choy hearts at the bottom of the casserole, and shape the mixed minced meat into several meatballs slightly larger than a fist. Gently place it on the bok choy, add clear broth, bring to a boil over high heat, skim off the foam, turn to a very low heat, cover and simmer slowly. This dish is all about the cooking time and the original flavor. It requires long simmering to make the meat tender and the broth clear and delicious. Next, make the large batch of boiled dried bean curd strips. This is a dish that extremely tests knife skills. Chen Hao took out a piece of firm, white tofu, placed it on the cutting board, and wielded his knife with lightning speed. With a flash of his knife, paper-thin dried bean curd strips were sliced off like snowflakes. He then cut these thin slices into hair-thin dried bean curd strips, rinsed them in water to remove the beany smell. Prepare a pot of broth using old hen and ham. Once the broth boils, add the prepared dried tofu strips. Add cooked shredded chicken, cooked ham, fresh bamboo shoots, and shrimp, and simmer over low heat to allow the dried bean curd to fully absorb the flavors of the various ingredients. Finally, garnish with a few blanched bean sprouts. The finished soup is rich and flavorful, the dried tofu strips are soft and tender, and the taste is delicious and complex. There's also a dish of squirrel-shaped mandarin fish. Chen Hao selected a fresh mandarin fish of a suitable size, removed its scales and internal organs, and washed it clean. The fish is scored with delicate, intricate cuts, deep enough to reach the bone but leaving the flesh intact, creating a beautiful squirrel-like pattern. Then evenly coat the surface with dry starch and shake off any excess. Heat a generous amount of oil to 60% of its maximum temperature. Hold the fish by the tail and pour hot oil over it to set its shape. Then, slide the whole fish into the oil and fry until the skin is golden brown and crispy and the flesh is cooked through. Remove the fish, drain the oil, and arrange it on a plate. In a separate pot, simmer tomato sauce, sugar, vinegar, and water to make a sweet and sour sauce. Thicken it with the cornstarch slurry and pour it over the fried fish. It will sizzle as it is poured over the fish. Finally, garnish with roasted pine nuts and green peas. It has a beautiful shape, crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, and a sweet and sour flavor that whets the appetite. Just as he finished frying the squirrel-shaped mandarin fish and plated it, preparing to stir-fry the last vegetable dish, Zhang Shuiao quietly entered the kitchen. She gently hugged Chen Hao's waist from behind, pressing her face against his broad, sturdy back. Her soft, elastic breasts pressed tightly against his spine, bringing an unparalleled feeling of comfort. "What are you making? It smells so good. I could smell it from the living room, it's making my mouth water." Zhang Shuiao's voice was soft and sweet, with a hint of coquetry. As Chen Hao stir-fried the vegetables in the pan, he smiled and said, "Today I made several Huayang dishes, braised lion's head meatballs, braised shredded dried tofu, and squirrel fish that you might like. They're all quite light and flavorful, you should like them." "Huayang cuisine? Chen Hao, you're amazing. It seems like there's no cuisine you can't cook." Zhang Shuiao rubbed her face against his back, sincerely praising him. "I feel like I don't need to eat out anymore since I'm with you. The food at home is 100 times better than anything you can eat out." As she was speaking, a faint smell of cooking oil wafted over. Zhang Shuiao frowned slightly, and then she felt a wave of nausea rising from her stomach. Ugh! She couldn't help but let go of Chen Hao's arms, cover her mouth, and let out a soft retching sound. Chen Hao immediately noticed her unusual behavior, quickly turned off the stove, turned around, put his hand on her shoulder, and asked with concern, "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? Is it the smell of cooking fumes?" Zhang Shuiao's face was a little pale. She nodded, then gagged again, tears welling up in her eyes. I feel a little uncomfortable." Chen Hao immediately understood that this was a normal reaction in early pregnancy morning sickness. In particular, the smell of cooking oil in the kitchen can easily cause discomfort for pregnant women. He immediately felt guilty, realizing he had been so focused on making delicious food that he had forgotten about the pregnant woman's special circumstances. "Come on, let's go out first, it smells bad here." He helped Zhang Shuiao and quickly walked out of the kitchen into the well-ventilated living room, where he let her sit down on the sofa. "Sit down and rest, don't move." After Chen Hao finished speaking, he turned around to pour her a glass of warm water, then remembered that ginger could relieve morning sickness. He quickly sliced a few pieces of ginger, brewed a bowl of light ginger tea with boiling water, carefully blew on it to cool it down, and then presented it to Zhang Shuiao. "Come on, rinse your mouth with some warm water first, then slowly drink some ginger tea, it will make you feel better." He squatted down in front of Zhang Shuiao, his tone as gentle as if he were coaxing a child. Zhang Shuiao took the water glass, took a few small sips of warm water, and then slowly drank a few sips of warm ginger tea. A warm sensation entered my stomach, and the pungent smell of ginger seemed to really suppress the nausea. After a while, her complexion gradually returned to normal. "Are you feeling better?" Chen Hao asked anxiously, watching her intently. "Yes, much better." Zhang Shuiao nodded, a little embarrassed. "I'm sorry, I disturbed your cooking." "What nonsense are you talking about?" Chen Hao interrupted her, taking her hand. "Your discomfort is the most important thing. From now on, when I cook, I'll try to keep the kitchen door closed, or you can stay away from it. Tell me what you want to eat in advance, and I'll make something light and low in oil for you." He looked at Zhang Shuiao's still somewhat pale face and made a decision in his heart. Shuiao is currently pregnant and may encounter various minor health problems in the future. Common sense and online searches alone are not enough. He needs to prepare in advance and systematically learn medical knowledge, especially obstetrics and gynecology and prenatal care, so that he can take better care of her. This idea took root in his mind. But for now, let's solve the problem of food first. Chapter 84. After reading medical books for just over 10 minutes, medical skills became proficient. "You rest well here. I'll finish the last 2 dishes soon. If you're still feeling unwell, be sure to call me immediately," Chen Hao instructed anxiously. "Okay, I'm fine now, you can go ahead and do your work." Zhang Shuiao nodded obediently. Chen Hao then got up and returned to the kitchen. He sped up, quickly stir-fried the last vegetable, and then served the carefully prepared huayang dishes one by one. The soup of braised crab meat lion's head meatballs is clear and fragrant. The broth of the braised dried bean curd strips is milky white, and the dried bean curd strips are tender and chewy. The squirrel-shaped mandarin fish has a unique shape and a bright red color. Add some stir-fried vegetables, and it looks incredibly appetizing. Just as he finished setting out the last dish, a prompt sounded in his mind again. Ding! Host detected engaging in culinary practice cooking huayang cuisine. Congratulations! You have accumulated 468 cooking skill experience points. Ding! Triggered a 10,000x return effect. You have received a 1999x experience bonus. Refund calculation: 468 points 1,999 times equals 935,532 experience points. Current cooking skill level: legendary 2,055,532 100 million. My experience points have increased again. However, Chen Hao's thoughts were more focused on Zhang Shuiao at the moment. He walked into the living room and said softly, "Shuiao, dinner is ready. Come and try it, see if it suits your taste." At lunchtime, the table was filled with delicious aromas. Chen Hao picked up his chopsticks, took a piece of the crispiest part of the squirrel-shaped mandarin fish, coated with a sweet and sour sauce, carefully blew on it, and then brought it to Zhang Shuiao's lips. "Here, try this. Watch out for the thorns, I've mostly removed them." Zhang Shuiao naturally opened her mouth to take it and chewed it carefully. The fish is crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, and the sweet and sour sauce perfectly brings out the freshness of the fish without being greasy at all. Her eyes immediately lit up, and after swallowing, she nodded repeatedly, "Delicious. It's really delicious. The outer layer is crispy, and the inside is tender. The flavor is just right." She picked up her own chopsticks, took a piece of fish, dipped it in the sauce at the bottom of the plate, and held it to Chen Hao's lips. "You eat too. It's really delicious." Chen Hao smiled, ate the food, and nodded, "It's alright." "What do you mean not bad?" Zhang Shuiao glared at him reproachfully. "This level of skill is just like what you see at state banquets on TV. No, I think it tastes even better." She now has a blind adoration for Chen Hao's cooking skills. "I'm glad you like it." Chen Hao was very pleased and picked up another piece of braised dried bean curd for her. "Try this one, it's quite mild." Zhang Shuiao tasted it and found that the dried bean curd strips had absorbed the essence of the ham and chicken soup, making them soft, tender, and delicious. She praised them highly. The two fed each other bite by bite, occasionally chatting and laughing softly, enjoying a warm and satisfying meal. Zhang Shuiao's morning sickness seemed to be temporarily suppressed by the delicious food, and she had a good appetite. After lunch, Chen Hao quickly cleared away the dishes and went to the kitchen to wash them. Zhang Shuiao, meanwhile, was engrossed in a book, nestled on the sofa in the living room, continuing to study for her postgraduate entrance exam. When Chen Hao finished his work and came out, he walked to the sofa and sat down next to Zhang Shuiao. Zhang Shuiao naturally rested her head on his shoulder, holding a book in her hand. Chen Hao reached out one hand and gently put his arm around her shoulder so she could lean on him more comfortably, while he took out his phone with his other hand. He remembered Zhang Shuiao's morning sickness at noon. Although it was just a normal reaction in early pregnancy, it reminded him that Zhang Shuiao was in a special period and her body might experience various problems. Relying solely on common sense and quick research is insufficient. What if an emergency occurs? He needs more systematic and professional knowledge to ensure her and the baby's health. With that in mind, Chen Hao began searching for electronic versions of various medical books on his phone. He plans to explore traditional Chinese medicine, Western medicine, basic and clinical medicine, especially obstetrics and gynecology, prenatal and postnatal care, and newborn care. Since he has this incredible cheat code, the system, he can master this knowledge very quickly. He operates his phone with one hand, browsing, downloading, and opening ebooks with fluid movements. Zhang Shuiao leaned against him, smelling his fresh and pleasant scent, and looked at her book. She felt incredibly at ease and didn't ask him what he was reading. As Chen Hao opened the first ebook, Basic Theories of Traditional Chinese Medicine, and began reading quickly, the long-awaited notification sound in his mind finally rang. Ding! Host has been detected actively learning medical-related knowledge. Congratulations! You have successfully activated the medical skill. Current medical skill level, beginner 0-100. It's done! Chen Hao was overjoyed. Indeed, systematic learning can activate the corresponding skills. This medical skill came at just the right time. He immediately composed himself and began to focus on reading the text on his phone screen. His legendary culinary and musical skills have elevated his learning and comprehension abilities to an inhuman level. At this moment, he was reading medical books at an astonishing speed, almost reading 10 lines at a glance, and he had a photographic memory and a thorough understanding of them. The obscure concepts of yin and yang, 5 elements, zhang-xiang organ manifestations, meridians, qi, blood, and body fluids and basic theories of traditional Chinese medicine became clear and understandable to him, as if they had always been imprinted in his memory. Just over 10 minutes later, as he quickly skimmed through the book's core outline and main theoretical framework, the system notification sounded again. Ding! Host detected engaging in medical learning and practice reading basic theories of traditional Chinese medicine. Congratulations! You have accumulated 17 medical skill experience points. Ding! Triggered a 10,000x return effect. You will receive a 100x experience bonus this time. Refund calculation: 17 points 100 times equals 1,700 experience points. Congratulations! Your medical skill experience points are full, and your level has increased. Current medical skill level: proficient 1,700 1,000. Cool! Chen Hao silently shouted to himself. They jumped straight from beginner to expert level. According to the correspondence of skill levels, the proficient level of medical skills is equivalent to the level of a resident physician who has graduated from a regular medical school, completed standardized training, and is able to independently handle common diseases. I've only been reading for about 10 minutes. But that's not enough. He needs more comprehensive and in-depth knowledge. He immediately opened the e-book Acupuncture. Meridians and Acupoints, Acupuncture and Moxibustion Methods, Treatment Principles. A flood of information rushed into his mind, which he quickly absorbed, summarized, and understood. Chapter 85: Master Level Medical Skills. After finishing acupuncture and moxibustion, Chen Hao immediately opened the selected readings of Huangdi Neijing, Nanjing, Shang Hanluan, Jing Gui Yalu and other core chapters of traditional Chinese medicine classics. At the same time, he also began to explore the basic disciplines of Western medicine: systemic anatomy, physiology, pathology, pharmacology, etc. The substantial knowledge that would take years to learn in modern medical education was rapidly digested by Chen Hao's terrifying learning ability. Zhang Xueya leaned against him and read for a while. Feeling a little tired, she put down the book and closed her eyes to doze off. She could feel that Chen Hao's body was very steady. He was gently patting her back with one hand, while the other hand seemed to be looking at something on his phone, looking very focused. She didn't disturb them, but simply enjoyed the peace and comfort they found. Time passed second by second. Chen Hao was completely immersed in the ocean of knowledge. The profoundness of traditional Chinese medicine and the rigorous system of Western medicine gradually merged in his mind. He reads at an extremely fast speed. The pages on his phone screen are almost constantly flipping automatically. As he quickly scanned through the dozen or so important works or core contents he had selected, covering the basics of both traditional Chinese and Western medicine and some core clinical knowledge, a pleasant prompting sound rang in his mind once again. Ding! Host detected engaging in medical learning and practice reading basic theories of traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture. Congratulations! You have accumulated 236 medical skill experience points. Ding! Triggered a 10,000x return effect. You will receive a 200x experience bonus this time. Refund calculation: 236 points 200 is equal to 47,200 experience points. Congratulations! Your medical skill experience points are full, and your level has increased. Current medical skill level: Master 47,210,000. Master level. Equivalent to the level of an attending physician in a hospital. This is already an expert level capable of handling complex cases independently. Chen Hao felt great satisfaction, but he did not stop. He knew that Zhang Xueyo needed comprehensive protection. He continued to search for more in-depth clinical medical books, and practical internal medicine gave him a systematic understanding of the diagnosis and treatment of various internal medicine diseases. Emergency and critical care medicine gave him the basic ability to deal with emergencies. The course clinical toxicology gave him an understanding of possible poisoning situations involving drugs and food. Of course, he also made a point of reviewing all the information he could find on prenatal and postnatal care, management of common pregnancy complications, and newborn care. A vast amount of medical knowledge and clinical experience that an ordinary person might need 2 or 3 decades to accumulate was injected into Chen Hao's consciousness and instincts like a sudden awakening, thanks to the system's critical strike return bonus. Finally, when he had finished devouring the core content of all the books he had selected in this round, the most exciting notification came. Ding! Detected that the host is engaged in medical learning and practice reading numerous medical works such as Huangdi Neijing, Nanjing, Shanghanluan, Jinkuiyalu, Systemic Anatomy, Physiology, Pathology, Pharmacology, Practical Internal Medicine, and Emergency and Critical Care Medicine. Congratulations! You have accumulated 1,109 medical skill experience points. Ding! Triggered a 10,000x return effect. You have received a 666x experience bonus. Refund calculation: 1,109.666 times equals 738,594 experience points. Congratulations! Your medical skill experience points are full, and your level has increased. Current medical skill level: Grandmaster 738,594 1 million. Grandmaster level. An indescribable joy and sense of security welled up in Chen Hao's heart. What does it mean to have master-level medical skills? This is equivalent to a senior professional title in the medical and health system chief physician. It is the highest level of medical professional title, and its professional skills and status are equivalent to those of a professor in a medical school. He is a true medical expert and authority. At this moment, Chen Hao felt as if he had gone through decades of hard study and clinical training. A vast body of traditional Chinese and Western medical theories were integrated into his mind, encompassing the typical manifestations, differential diagnoses, treatment plans, medication principles, and emergency management of countless diseases. All of this transformed into a profound intuition and instinctive reaction in him. Although lacking practical experience such as in surgery, they excel in theoretical diagnosis, medication guidance, acupuncture and massage, and emergency treatment. Especially in prenatal and postnatal care and prevention and treatment of common diseases, he is confident that he is no less capable than any chief physician in a top-tier hospital. He now feels completely different when he looks at Zhang Shuiao sleeping peacefully in his arms. He could perceive more acutely the subtle changes in her breathing, the slightest changes in her complexion, and even, based on her earlier nausea and vomiting. Combining pulse diagnosis: although I haven't taken the pulse yet in common knowledge about pregnancy, I quickly deduced several possible TCM treatment approaches and Western medicine precautions in my mind. It feels so good to have everything under control and to be able to protect your loved ones. Zhang Shuiao, who was reading a book the whole time, was not actually completely immersed in her book. She noticed Chen Hao leaning against her, one arm around her, the other holding his phone, his expression focused intently on the screen. My finger barely moved, only tapping occasionally, as if I were looking at something very fixed, and I'd been looking at it for quite a while. She looked up curiously, turned her head to look at Chen Hao's profile, and asked, "Chen Hao, what are you looking at? Why are you so focused? You've been looking at it for quite a while now." Chen Hao snapped out of his reverie about medical knowledge, turned to look at her, and replied naturally, "I'm reading medical books and learning some medical skills." Medical books? Learning medicine? Zhang Shuiao was taken aback for a moment, then laughed, finding it somewhat amusing. "Why did you suddenly decide to learn this? And, you think you can learn medicine just by reading a few medical books online?" Medicine is a vast and profound field. I have a cousin who studied medicine. It takes 5 years to complete an undergraduate degree, plus residency training and postgraduate entrance exams. It's incredibly tough. You, a computer science major, switching to medicine? It's not that easy. You'd be better off looking at health and wellness information. Although Zhang Shuiao felt that Chen Hao's idea was a bit naive, she felt a warm feeling welling up in her heart. She quickly recalled Chen Hao's anxious expression when she was experiencing morning sickness at noon, and immediately understood his motivation for studying medicine. She put down her book, turned to face Chen Hao, her eyes softened, and her voice became much gentler. "Did you want to study medicine because I wasn't feeling well at noon? For my sake?" Chapter 86. Close your eyes and enjoy it. Seeing the moved look in Zhang Shuiao's eyes, Chen Hao nodded and said frankly, "Yes. You are pregnant now, and your body may experience various changes and discomforts. Relying solely on research or going to the hospital is never timely or reassuring enough. If I learn how to do it myself, I'll be able to take better care of you and handle some common minor problems, which will give me peace of mind. Zhang Xueyao felt a sweet warmth in her heart and leaned over to kiss him on the cheek. Chen Hao, you're so good to me. But you really don't need to go through all that trouble to study medicine, it's too complicated. We can go to the hospital if we need to. Besides, you really won't learn anything by reading a few books. Chen Hao touched the spot where he had been kissed, smiled, and spoke with an air of self-assured confidence. Your husband is exceptionally smart and has an incredible ability to learn on his own. Medical science is not that difficult for me. And I have good news for you, I've already learned it. My current medical skills are probably about the same as a chief physician in a top-tier hospital. Zhang Xueyao couldn't help but burst out laughing and gently patted him on the shoulder. Chen Hao, can you stop talking nonsense with such a straight face? Chief physician? How long have you been looking at your phone? And you've already learned medicine? And you're a chief physician? Do you think you're playing a game where you can just click on a skill book and reach max level? She felt that Chen Hao was definitely just trying to make her happy and was exaggerating on purpose. Although Chen Hao has shown amazing talent in other areas, what about medicine? Becoming a chief physician after just a few hours of looking at a phone? That's more absurd than a fairy tale. She didn't believe it at all, thinking that Chen Hao was just saying sweet nothings to coax her. Seeing her laughing so hard she was shaking, completely disbelieving, Chen Hao wasn't angry. Instead, his eyes darted around, and he revealed a slightly mischievous smile. I knew you wouldn't believe me. Here's what we'll do, practice is the sole criterion for testing truth. Let me give you a massage, you can experience it for yourself, how does it feel? I guarantee you'll feel so comfortable you'll lose your bearings. Zhang Xueyao stopped laughing, raised an eyebrow, and became interested. Massage? Sure. My neck is a little sore from reading. I want to see just how amazing our chief physician Chen's massage skills really are. Her tone was clearly teasing and challenging. She was thinking that if Chen Hao didn't press the button well, she could take the opportunity to mock him and tell him not to be so arrogant. Okay, let's go upstairs then. A massage in bed is more comfortable. As Chen Hao spoke, he stood up and pulled Zhang Xueyao up as well. The two walked hand in hand to the bedroom on the second floor. Chen Hao patted the soft bed. Lie down. Zhang Xueyao naturally started to sit on the bed, but Chen Hao spoke up. Take off your coat and outer clothes. Massaging while wearing clothes won't be as effective or comfortable. Zhang Xueyao paused, her face immediately flushing red, her eyes darting around. Do I have to take off my clothes? Chen Hao found her shy expression amusing, so he deliberately leaned closer and chuckled softly. Of course you have to take your clothes off. How can you find the acupoints and meridians through clothes? The relaxation effect is far less. Besides, what part of your body haven't I seen or touched? And you're still shy? You pervert. Zhang Xueyao's ears turned red from his blunt words, and she stomped her foot playfully. Then turn around. Don't look. Chen Hao smiled helplessly. We're already in this kind of relationship, and you still. I don't care. Just turn around when I tell you to. Zhang Xueyao insisted, pushing his back to make him turn around. Okay, I'll turn around. Chen Hao couldn't persuade her otherwise, so he turned around and faced the wall. Hurry up. I heard the rustling sound of clothes being taken off behind me. After a while, Zhang Xueya's voice, barely audible, rang out. Okay. Chen Hao turned around. Zhang Xueya was already lying on the bed, wearing only her close-fitting underwear and panties. She nervously clasped her hands together on her lower abdomen, though it was still quite flat, her cheeks flushed, her eyes tightly closed, her long eyelashes trembling slightly, looking both vulnerable and shy. Her snow-white skin gleamed with an ivory-like sheen under the soft light of the bedroom, her curves were exquisite and shapely, and because of her pregnancy, her breasts seemed to be fuller than before, almost bursting out from under her light-colored underwear. This half-hidden, half-revealed look is more alluring than being completely naked. Chen Hao took a deep breath, suppressing the erotic thoughts rising in his mind. Now was the time to demonstrate his medical skills. He walked to the bedside and sat down, his voice gentle. Relax, close your eyes, and enjoy it. I'm about to begin. He started with the head. He gently pressed his thumbs onto her temples, kneading them slowly with just the right amount of pressure. Then he inserted his fingers into her hair, gently massaging the acupoints on her scalp. His master-level medical skills gave him an intimate knowledge of the body's meridians and acupoints, and he had perfect control over the force, angle, and rhythm. Zhang Shuiyao's scalp, which had been slightly tense due to nervousness, quickly relaxed, and a comfortable tingling sensation spread from the top of her head. Next is the neck. Chen Hao's fingers traveled down the back of her neck along the Fengqi and Tianzhu acupoints, using a combination of kneading and pressing techniques to soothe her stiff muscles caused by sitting for long periods of time reading. Zhang Shuiyao couldn't help but let out a very soft sigh, her neck unconsciously tilting back to match his movement. The shoulders and back are the focus. Chen Hao's hands roamed over her smooth shoulders and back, sometimes kneading with the heel of his palms, sometimes pressing acupoints with his knuckles. He deliberately avoided the center of the spine, focusing instead on the muscle groups on both sides. Zhang Shuiyao felt a warm current seep into her skin through his palm. After the soreness subsided, she felt incredibly relaxed, as if a heavy burden had been lifted. Her hands, which had been clasped together on her lower abdomen, had somehow come undone, and her body went limp on the bed like a pool of spring water. A soft, sweet moan escaped Zhang Shuiyao's throat uncontrollably. She immediately realized that the voice was too ambiguous and seductive, her face turned even redder, and she quickly bit her lower lip. But Chen Hao's massage was so comfortable that she couldn't control her body's reaction at all. When Chen Hao's hand reached her chest, Zhang Shuiyao's body tensed up slightly again. Even though they were wearing underwear, the intimate touch still made her heart race. Chen Hao's technique was very professional. He didn't linger on sensitive areas, but focused on massaging the area above the ribcage and below the collarbone, where there are many acupoints related to breathing and emotions. His fingertips possessed a magical quality. The soreness and pressure he created quickly transformed into comfort, making her breaths long and even. Occasionally, her fingertips would inadvertently brush against the edge, bringing a shiver that Zhang Shuiyao both felt shy and secretly enjoyed. Chen Hao's massage moved downwards, meticulously attending to the arms, sides, avoiding the abdomen, buttocks, and thighs.